What's up, everybody? Welcome to PS I Love You XOXO episode 109. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the roller skating, game playing, marathon trading, Janet Garcia.
Yo, what's good?
Not much. What's good with you?
A lot. I mean, I just went through my phone and tried to pull out all of my Horizon thoughts that I had written down and made sense of them. So
how did that go? Do you feel like you're in there? You feel like you're ready to go?
I feel like I'm ready to go. I did look it through the plot summaries, try to remind myself of the main points, but I transcribed just a bunch of stuff that I felt at the time. And I'm excited to really finally share those because I feel like for the review, it definitely was gloves on for, there were so many special moments. And it's just now we can actually talk about what those are. And it's I don't know how I felt about some choices, and now we can talk about those. So
certain
I'm excited
characters weren't used appropriately.
Have a real conversation on it. So yeah, it should be fun.
I can't wait. I'm very excited for it as well. And one of the main reasons I'm excited, of course, is that Blessing isn't here. He was bit in the eyes by a snake. Mm-hmm. You hate to see it, boss baby Barrett.
He can't see it because he was bitten in the eye.
Exactly. Yeah. Rough for him too, because he was just starting to get into that Elden Ring. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then bam. Double snake bite. That's the end of that.
Yeah, the Elden Ring haters came for him. He was finally
They said only a 4 out of 5, and they unleashed the cobras on him.
And then he said 5 out of 5, and it was like, oh well, we got to get this kid's eyes.
And that's when I was like, well, now I'm gonna send him a cobra. It's like stand for something, or fall for everything. Blessing. You know what I mean? What's the score, bro? You're gonna tell me your reviews can change and evolve over time. Your opinions on a game, not in my no, not in my life. Write it in stone, and that's how you feel about the game, Janet.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's no time to waste. This, of course, is PS I Love You XOXO. We are your PlayStation podcast. Each and every Tuesday, we come together to nerd out about all things PlayStation. If you like that, well, you should go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames like so many of you did today. Over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames, of course, you can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad-free. You can get it with the exclusive post show we do each and every week. You can get your name read. You can do all these different things. But most importantly for right now, maybe you could be watching us record the show live. That's right. We post on Tuesdays everywhere else for free. But you can watch us record the show live, just like James Davis makes his, who is actually in this episode. James Davis watching right now. He didn't submit anything, I don't think, to the actual show, but I saw him say something on Twitter that I brought in that I'm going to use as a point later on to say, Blessing, you're wrong. Cooper and Trey all are. If you want to watch live, like I said, patreon.com/kindafunnygames, as long as there isn't some kind of embargo to get in our way, you can get it on Monday, ad-free, with the post show as we record it. But if you don't want to, youtube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday morning, usually at 6 a.m. embargoes pending. And of course, you would have to listen to the ads. You wouldn't get the post show, but you'd still have a good time. Some housekeeping for you. Remember, of course, it is review season. You can smell it in the air. It's happening. The leaves are changing. It continues to happen. That means that the Kinda Funny Games Cast, of course, is your place to see us talk about all sorts of games. I know for a fact we have a Games Cast coming up this week, Wednesday, I believe, with reviews, impressions, all sorts of stuff. Some of it's embargoed, some of it's old, some of it's just recapping where people are at with Elden Ring. It's going to be a great episode. I can't wait to record it.
Not only video game review season, Greg, too, as well. If you're watching this morning, as it goes up, youtube.com/kindafunnygames at 6 a.m. Pacific. Later today, we will have the Batman review over on youtube.com/kindafunny, which will be very exciting.
Yeah. See, I thought you were talking specifically about the Games Cast, because I'm going to review my Razer chair. But that's true too. Yeah, Batman's getting reviewed.
Batman week, baby. I'm excited. We're going to have a screencast review. We'll have an in-review, I'm sure, later this week. All that good stuff. So it's exciting.
Can't wait. Yeah. It's the time, Janet. This is the time to be alive.
When is review season over?
Honestly, I feel like we're crossing the finish line-ish. Like, March has games,
feel like this is the end, right?
March doesn't have reviews. I think if you were an IGN or a GameSpot or a real company, you'd have somebody who cares about Gran Turismo reviewing Gran Turismo, and maybe that would kind of be crossing the finish line. But kind of funny that like nobody's super into Gran Turismo, so that's not really like one of our bags or anything. And that's a very specific group. Anyways, but March you look ahead and it's like I can name games I'm excited for.
Yeah, but you can always do that. If exactly. We couldn't, that'd be kind of a red flag on up. Right? Like, there's nothing coming out. Literally nothing.
Bear, do me a favor and mute Janet's headphones for a second, all right? You did it good. What is her problem? You know what I mean? It's a one-on-one show. She can come and bust my balls. Like,
okay,
this is what she's gonna
do. The headphone muting does not work on my end. Sorry,
Janet. That was just a joke. Yeah, like next month I'm excited for Tiny Tina. I'm excited for WWE. I'm excited for Tunic and stuff like that. But We don't have Elden Ring Horizon.
I think for it to be what also this opens up a new can of worms. What qualifies review season? To me, it has to be like a certain like back-to-backness and also the scope. I think the thing that really made this like the review season to end all review seasons is that there were like probably I think at least 3 to more open world. You had Dying Light 2, Horizon. What was the other one?
Elden Ring
and Pokemon.
Sifu and Pokemon.
Yeah, Sifu's more like that's like on the side of the season. I mean, it's in the season because it's like it happened to be there, but that could have came out at any.
Yeah, but it's also maybe the best out of all of those games in the review season. Don't just push.
Barrett, keep your hot takes to twitch.tv/sadboybarrett. All right.
I don't stream there anymore, so I gotta,
really? Why not?
I got to bring them over here. Because
we did talk about this.
Because I streamed at the beginning of the pandemic because there wasn't a lot happening at home, and then work got busy and life got busy, and now I have a dog who is
sure.
needs a lot
Fair
of
enough.
attention,
Fair enough.
So.
I'll miss your buckets.
There's always going to be video game reviews for us to go through. We're always going to be excited about the next thing. But in terms of like break the needle off for hype, I think we have a breath here. And we'll have to wait and see what comes in. What are you going to do with your time, Janet? Because that's the other thing. I have a review going live tomorrow that is for the foreseeable future. Like the only thing I have, like I have to review that I can double back in Platinum Horizon. I can try more Elden Ring. I can do stuff like that. What's your plan?
Yeah, I'm honestly already out because like I'm playing Elden Ring like most people on the planet, but I'm not like, dying for it. And I'm dying in it because it's a hard game, but like I'm not committed to anything with that game. I'm like, yeah, I'll probably play more. Let's see what there is to see. Maybe we'll roll credits. Maybe we won't. I don't know. So that's very casual for me. And I like played it the Friday that it came out. Like I wasn't, doing any, I have no content plans for it. it's just part of the way I'd casually play any other game. So I'm already kind of out of it. Like my last thing was like all the stuff this was just ending last week of work. I think I was kind of done with the crazy stuff. And obviously there's, more reviews and content coming out.
Yeah.
But I've just been being like, what's it like to just get to be a little bit like I'm cleaning up my apartment a little bit because it got really messy from review season. I started playing Fallout 4.
I saw that
just on, and I love how that really threw everyone through a loop. I find it hilarious that everyone was like, why was that? Is it just that it's really old? I feel like everyone thought they knew me and then they saw me play Fallout 4 and they're like, what the fuck's going on?
The reason I think it threw so many people that you're playing Fallout 4 is that right now it's been review season, so it is on the next big. And then when you usually double back to something, there's a rhyme or reason, like we're doing a book club and we're never going to talk about it. We're doing a book club on PS I Love You, or MinMax is doing some retrospective, or your stream, got you on some milestone to do whatever. So just on a random ass day to see Fallout 4 pop up, we were all like,
and it was just, and it's funny because some people were like, oh, let's, you should stream this. And I'm sure it'd be very fun to stream. And I love streaming games, but I also like having stuff that I don't always stream. Like I don't want to stream everything I do, even though it would be fun. And people were like, what's with Fallout 4? And I just was in the mood to play something that would lead to some amusing scenarios that Isaiah was familiar with, that he could kind of enjoy me watching / like comment on or help. So it's really a stream for one, pretty much. It's the most exclusive stream.
Wow. What is the Patreon tier for that?
Oh man. Like, how about y'all let me know and then I'll make it. That's the trick. I'm like, I'll just price it at whatever. And then we'll see if one person goes. But yeah, like I just was like, let's just boot this up. Why not? And I've been having fun with it. I don't have any like plans or commitments to it. I'm just kind of playing it randomly. I finally got to the base building stuff and I love that because it's just
really, that's what broke it for me. That's what I didn't want to do.
Really? Oh no, I'm like, no, I mean, I'm struggling. Like, I'm looking at the little stats and Isaiah's like, look, if people are hungry, they're thirsty. You've been trying to put down 3 beds for the last 3 hours. Like, and I'm like, yeah, but like, it's great. I'm like breaking down the build. I'm picking up the debris on the side. We're turning this apocalypse into a home. Like I'm having a great time, but it's stuff like that. We can talk more for what we've been playing and stuff, but really my thing is going to be able to dip into stuff that I haven't had the time for, maybe finish things I started that I want to finish, pick up some stuff, just like feel a little bit more, I don't know, free to like do other stuff, basically, not be so, in the weeds and behind the scenes on things.
Yeah. Be able to live your life and tweet what you're doing and play what you want.
What about you? What's freedom look like to you?
On the other side of this, the game I'm reviewing for tomorrow, I'm going to keep playing, but it won't dominate all my time. I want to Platinum Horizon.
I'm also working on that. But
we're going to talk about, we'll talk about Elden Ring, I'm sure, if we get to what you've been playing, if we don't go too long in the spoiler cast. But I want to give that more of a fair shake. When we got code for that, I jumped in, gave it like an hour and a half, but it was like literally like I was about to finish Martha is Dead, and then I needed to start the other review that I was working on. So it was like I knew I wasn't in it for the long haul. So it was like, I'll screw around with it, see if it's any different for me. It came off to me like the typical Souls experience, which I know this is an expanded version of it, but that's not my jam. So I wasn't super like, I need to, I'm excited to get back to it. I was playing it. I'm like, man, I'd rather stop this and go play Horizon. I'd rather go see what's up, keep working on my thing there. So that, and then, get ready for the littler things. I still haven't done real time in Pokemon. I know we're a PlayStation podcast, but I do want to play Arceus.
Even with the new one coming out, you still want to, because you gotta move quick then if you're going to hit that late 2022.
I think I'll be okay. I'm not a Pokemaniac here, so I'm not really torn between them. I'm going to see what's up and get there. But yeah, playing what strikes the mood, not what I have to, what strikes a lot of people's mood? Being a Patreon producer over on KindaFunny.com. You can go there, click on the Patreon page, and get to patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames. And then you can be a Patreon producer like Gordon McGuire, James Davis, aka @JamesDavisMakes, Pranksky, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, First Responder ND, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, and Casey Andrew. Our final round of applause. Final round of these folks being Patreon producers for the month of February. Obviously, we'll have a new group of March tomorrow. Today, we're sponsored by Guild Wars, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin the show with topic of the show. Now, here's your chance, ladies and gentlemen. Now, as you know, the headline, the thumbnail, Horizon Forbidden West Spoilercast. That means we are going to spoil and have a gloves-off discussion about Horizon Forbidden West. I saw some people in the chat being like, I'm going to hang out until they start doing it. It's time for you to go. It's time for you to leave. I appreciate your support. I appreciate you being here for the first, 18 minutes of the show, whatever it's been. You had some fun. Congratulations. You should go away now. We're going to spoil this thing. If you're coming here way later in time, if this is a time capsule, hello, tweet at me, banana pudding. Only do that if we're past the halfway of March. Like you've waited that long. You know what I mean? I want to see, don't tweet me banana pudding on Tuesday when this goes live. Janet, I'm saying like when you listen to this way later, banana pudding, all lowercase, no period. That's how I'll know you're listening to the Horizon Forbidden West Spoilercast in the future. Because people are taking their time with this game, Janet.
As they should.
As they should. They should enjoy it. All right. So everybody who's here, you're okay? Everybody's fine?
Yeah.
All right, good. We're on board. And hey, Barrett, here we go. We're in it. I was going to say, Barrett, I was very proud to see you roll credits on it. Talk to me about that. In the lead up to it, when we were all talking about this, you initially were I think you were even thinking about maybe dropping it. Like it just wasn't for you.
Yeah.
Then I saw you tweet that you played some more. It got better. Where's your Barrett Courtney CEO Junior review of Horizon Zero Dawn? No, it's Horizon Forbidden West.
I on the kind of funny scale, I would give it a 3 out of 5. I was talking about this with Mike on stream on Friday, I think, because that is like an okay. And Andy and I were joking about like okay has different connotations where it's like it's okay, or like it's okay, and I feel both of those things at the same time with Horizon Forbidden West. A lot of problems that I have personally with just the movement of Aloy in general, when climbing on things, when fighting really big robo dinos.
Because you didn't like it, right?
Yeah, there are things that feel clunky, I think, all around throughout the gameplay.
I am just a Billy, writes into patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames and says, all right, I need Angry Greg voice, please. Ahem. How come nobody is talking about how clunky Aloy feels when she's platforming? Am I crazy for thinking it feels awkward as hell every time she performs a jump grapple? Am I the only one who overjumps a platform or gets stuck on an awkward climbing spot? This has happened to me multiple times during my initial 5 hours. It was truly awful navigating the cauldron with the robot arms. Aloy feels like she sticks to walls too long, and why is jumping from wall to wall mapped on the circle button? Aloy just feels clunky. Am I alone in this?
No, and I felt alone in this as well. I think it might have been the Giant Bombcast that talked about this, where like they put in a really good like her inertia just feels off when you're climbing, which is like a very specific way to put it. But I very much agree with that. It's definitely felt off and never felt better throughout my time. That never got something that was never something I got used to, for sure. that mixed with like the very I think it's a by the numbers kind of designed open world, a lot of things on your map to go look at and either take out an enemy camp or do something else, go to these like ancient ruins and discover something there with puzzles and stuff like that. Go figure out how to get up a tall neck, all that stuff. It feels very by the numbers. Doesn't seem anything that's like necessarily bad, but nothing that's necessarily like, holy crap, this is fantastic open world design. And then the story, it was also, I feel like at moments was like incredible, and we will talk about all of that throughout this episode, right?
Yeah.
And then just like a lot of politics in the world that I just don't care about. I think Aloy is a very non-character, and especially in this story, and just like a lot of moments that it's okay. It's at the end of the day, it's an okay game. I think, like I said, either on last week's PS I Love You or something, like it would be a very weak year for me personally if this ended up being on my top 10 games list for game of the year voting. And I wanted it to give it its due. I rolled credits at like 36 or 37 hours to like, have those conversations at the end of the year for game of the year and all that stuff of like, did I give it the time it deserved to really, give my thoughts and feelings on it of why or why not it deserves to be on the list.
Fair enough. Yeah, the clunky Aloy stuff for platforming, the majority of time didn't feel that it was clunky. I do agree that when I Am Just a Billy brings up the cauldron, when we did the cauldron, I think you're talking about on, or maybe just one of them, on the stream on launch day, which was like only it was my first cauldron, not in the story because I mainlined or whatever. I did definitely feel like, what the fuck does it want me to do? And that was when it was like, why is this on circle? Like, why does everybody try to reinvent the wheel sometimes? Just like we all know what
I will
just
say,
make it Assassin's Creed.
One of the gameplay things I did like is like gliding around and then finding a hook shot thing and then like doing like gliding, hook shotting, and then doing the jump after a hook shot and then gliding again. That stuff was like, this makes me feel like a badass, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think the platforming is at its roughest when it is a lot more, you're going from A to B and not like A to like B through D, where I find like the overall traversal to be fine because it's fairly open even if you're trying to get to one area because there's a lot of little places that you can latch onto. But when I'm jumping across like from one side of a bridge to another and there's a gap, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I just need to jump it, but is it like a run? Like, especially early on when you're doing like some of the early stuff with like the Asaram tribe and you go into like the cave and you're trying to like blow it up or something, there's like a portion where it's like, nope, fell in the water. Is there something I'm missing, or am I just not landing the jump right? And on the whole, I do think they give you enough leeway to kind of design around that. I think they kind of know that themselves, and that's why it's like it doesn't have to be pixel perfect, but sometimes I do think when it wants you to do something really specific, it can be a little bit frustrating. And again, I think they do circumvent that in some of the design choices, like having strategic ladder placements, because I know if you fall off, you'd be super pissed if you had to do it all over again.
The ones that are
like
there to kick it down.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So you're not I Am Just a Billy, you're not out there. And then Barrett, you say okay on both, it's okay and it's a good or whatever. Overall, what did you think of the story?
There are elements that I like. I don't think it comes to I think they add too many elements throughout, where it's like when you get to something new, it's like, oh wow, this is crazy, and I'm 25 hours into this game. Remember, what's her face? Why am I blanking on her name? Angela Bassett. I haven't seen Angela Bassett in 20 hours. What? Like, why is that important? Like, what? And then it finally comes together. I just think the way they paced out, like bringing in new characters, bringing together the team, I think could have been handled. Like, I saw what they were going for, and I did like aspects of it. But I think it could have been maybe paced a little bit better. And I think just like where it all kind of ends, I felt at times it felt very predictable, but at the same time, there's like really cool like sci-fi lore stuff that I was into that I don't feel like we got enough of. So yeah, it was all over the place. Like I said, okay.
Shannon, one of the things we were kicking around before in the reviews and being quiet and muted about, but now we don't have to, is the story of Forbidden West better than Zero Dawn?
Yes.
Why?
I think it has more intriguing layers, and I think we know enough about the base mystery to just be a little bit more informed and then thus invested in what's going on. I also think it just creates a little bit more cohesion. Again, I'm not someone that, like, we talked about this a lot when we did the like re-review or the review revisit of Horizon 1, and Blessing like said he didn't like the deviation between there's sort of the problems of the modern of their world and then Aloy kind of unwrapping this mystery on her own. I think bringing in the community a lot more, like the ones that are met, like everyone kind of knows what's going on and she can like inform and empower people a lot more. And I like that you still continue to relearn things you think you already knew. Like, I like how the story of Horizon as now a franchise is you think you know, but you have no idea the story, to like borrow from, I think that was like the Real World tagline.
It was a Real World.
Yeah.
Oh, no, Diary, MTV's Diary. You think you know, but you have no idea.
Okay,
this is the diary of
some,
Britney Spears
or something like that. Yeah. Anyway, someone will correct us on it. Whoever's the deep cut of, if you like both Horizon and these old MTV shows. Yes. We're doing great. I like that aspect of it. And I also think it had a more emotional punch to it. Like, I think, and we'll talk about whether or not that was like cheap or not cheap, you know, like, but I think overall I did feel more things here. It elicited more emotion from me than the first one. And I think it's because so much of what the first one's emotion is predicated on is stuff that I just don't have any direct attachment to. Like, you do see like Russ in the beginning, and it's sad that Russ dies. Spoilers for the first game if you didn't, but it's not like I wasn't, you know, we weren't with them for that long, and it's not like and you don't need to be with someone for a long time to create an emotional story. We saw that in Up, right? But yeah, it didn't. I don't think that wasn't an Up moment for them. I think they wanted it to be, but it wasn't.
And that's you know, one of the things, and we can get into it here, but to answer my own question, I think the story is better than the first. I think that in the way when you were playing through for the first time, we were getting ready for the re-review of Horizon. I think I made a comment leading up to it of like, I mean, I remember obviously the end, the reveal, you know, I mean, that this is it. We destroyed it. It was all this thing, but like, I couldn't remember. I wasn't there with the specifics anymore and like who was doing what and why they were doing it and blah, 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 because there are these dual narratives, right? Of what Aloy's doing in her time and then what Aloy's doing in the past time to figure out Zero Dawn and everything that's going on there, Operation Enduring Freedom. I think that for Forbidden West, when we get ready for the third game and we're about to launch the third game, I think I'm going to be able to tell you more specifics about Forbidden West than I am about Zero Dawn, because I think Forbidden West is a more, I mean, literally A to B as you go from A all the way out west to B, right? But it's a straight line through narrative, even though Regalia gets involved with it. And she's, you know, this bad person who I think Angela Bassett does a great job as the character. I wanted more of it. And I'll stop here and go, did you save her or did you kill her, Janet?
I saved her.
Barrett, did you save her or did you kill her? Oh, Barrett actually said he did text me. Sorry, he had to step away for 1 second. Yeah, I saved her too, right? Because I like that character so much.
So I talked to like 2 or 3 other people that like also beat the game, and we were like having spoiler conversations, and they all saved her. Did no one kill her? I don't think anyone killed her.
Why would you? I mean, it just doesn't seem. No, I mean, like
that's what I'm. Yeah.
But this then goes back to our whole thing about who Aloy is, right? And how I don't think you get. We talked about this before, right? Of I think in coded conversations, or maybe just not online, right? Of like, Aloy is, what did we say, neutral good before when we were going through this whole thing?
Lawful,
and it's like
lawful neutral or something.
And it's that thing where I don't think we're allowed to put enough oomph into Aloy, either, you know, on the light side or the dark side. So you're left with this character that's, you know, would do the good thing. And I like the story better here. We're going to get into all these different things that I love about it. We're not going to, again, this game is amazing. I say, don't get caught up in the fact that I'm going to criticize it and think that I hate it. But it's like Aloy in general, right, is this, she does good for good. She likes doing good because it's good. And at one point they even are like, you're Elizabeth Sobek's clone. Of course you're going to be like a good, it's in your DNA. And I'm like, is that where we're taking the nature versus nurture conversation? Like, I would like more motivation.
So many nature nurture things. I mean, this is nature nurture of the game. This game is so freaking, like, I love it. Like, I enjoy this. I genuinely enjoy the story. I think they pull it off, even though it is, I think without the writing they have, it could easily not land. But I think they like take the story seriously enough that I'm here for the weird space odyssey that you've decided to take me on. Like, I'm buckled up, I'm ready to go. Like, however, the story, it's freaking batshit crazy. Like the stuff with, again, we can just talk about the stuff now. It's like so weird. But with like Beta and like who Beta is as a person, and like the idea of like the DNA and, oh, we're both the same person, but we're so different. Like, there's so many weird, almost head ass stuff. Again, it would be head ass if they didn't stick the landing with the writing. But yeah, there's like a lot of interesting, weird, philosophical, like classic motifs and stuff that they draw on here. And I think that's also another reason the story feels more whole and fleshed out to me than the first one does, even if it is, it has the flaws that, Barrett and others have pointed out.
Yeah. So I've gone over here. I did a quick Google. I'm at gamerant.com. We're going to read the article here by Thomas Bowen, who breaks it down, right? If you kill or spare Regalia. Barrett, did you kill or spare Regala?
I spared her, and I feel like probably the main difference was that there seems to be a very clear point that she like staves off a bunch of robo dinos at the final conflict.
Yeah,
and I feel like I probably would have had to fight those if she wasn't there.
Here's where we are on Game Rant. What happens if players choose to kill Regalia? If players choose the Your Life Ends Here option, Aloy will tell Regala that she can't let her live for what she's done. As Regala stands to accept her fate, Kotalo rushes forward and lunges his spear into her gut, killing her before she's even had the chance to finish speaking her final words. After Silent's message arrives, Hikaru will then give Aloy Regalia's Wraith a sharpshooter bow that specializes in long-range damage. Now, what's interesting here is they then jump to what happens if you choose to spare her, right? Players, there's another battle ahead. Aloy will promise Regalia a much more fitting death if she agrees, blah, blah, blah. And then it's what we're talking about, what we all did, right? Where the Spectres jump up. We're running for the far Zenith base. She sacrifices herself with a group of Spectres. We keep it going. You don't get the bow. But it doesn't say that, like, there's nothing underneath that of, like, you have to fight those robots.
I think, too, that's one of my, I feel like we've had this conversation even from the first game, because it's just, like, a lot of the decisions design-wise are the same. Like, they have this whole, like, head, heart, or fist thing, but it's really just, like, and this is going to sound so mean, but, like, I say this with love to the team and everything, but, like, it is a slightly better version of freaking the Pokemon dialogue. None of it matters. Like, it's just flavor. It's flavor, but I'm not tasting anything. Like, it doesn't actually mean anything. And I still... it can be nice to get to make those choices, because I think it does engage me a little bit more in the story. And there is like a lot of story and text and stuff, like, it keeps me having something to do, reading the stuff. I get that value, but I just feel like, why do you give me this head, heart, fist bullshit when it's not actually, like, it doesn't really amount to anything meaningful? And then every now and then they'll throw in, here's one that actually matters. And that is, nice. But then it is the classic, like, oh, well, like, it doesn't really matter that much, though. And, I just really wish they either, did away with it or did more with it. It just feels like I hate that fake choice stuff in games.
Yeah, I'm always one of, there's a big difference between, and I'm just going to use specific games for examples. Telltale The Walking Dead Season 1, right? And Infamous 2. Whereas I feel in Infamous and Infamous 2, once I make the choice that I'm going to be good Cole or evil Cole, like on the first decision, why ever give me the choice again? Because now I'm investing specific points into these specific trees that are, it doesn't make sense for me to go 5 levels into good and then be like, actually, I want to go bad because I can't respec and I've already lost the thing and I'm never going to get to the ultimate power at the good, right? So I've chosen to be good or I've chosen to be evil. And I feel like for those kind of games, and I would put Horizon is more like that, even though I think it goes way less, obviously, in terms of the head, heart, fist. Because like you're saying, you make these choices, and even Regalia here, right? You make a choice, and if you apparently kill her, right, what do? What does it get you? You don't even fight those robots at the end. It's just not even a real story point. It's not that something that does pivot and change that way. When you do, I would rather see the game then tell me who Aloy is, so that I understand you give me these choices to let me project my character on her, like make her into my own thing. But at that point, just do a Nathan Drake thing. Just do an Uncharted. Just tell me who this character is and how she would deal with these scenarios and things and go through. Because I think it would actually make it stronger than the illusion of choice, but it not amounting to anything. Walking Dead Season 1 was very much like, you choose A or B. You chose A, which means this person dies. And then you start splintering off. We all get to, it's, the old Greg Miller adage of, the games, these games are all coloring books and we shade our picture differently. And but we all have the same image in the end. Like,
especially Chicory.
Exactly. But like, why do that? I'd rather see a more narrative, cinematic take, like a la an Uncharted, than trying to be an Infamous and even doing that. But all that said, like, they do it in a way. This game, what I love about the story is the way they surround Aloy with characters. And we talked about this in the first game, or the first review, right? Of it being, hey, this feels like Mass Effect 2. And I don't think they go as far as they should with the Mass Effect 2 style loyalty quest and all that stuff. But having a team, having them have conversations, like, you know, I know we want to talk about Varl. Like, Varl's introduction, or reintroduction, I should say, since he is from the first game, and meeting him again and going, I was like, oh, okay, like, are they going to try to start? Does Varl have a crush on me? Like, are we going that way? Is this going to be a thing? Is it going to be romantic? So to see him splinter off and you fall in love and, you know, start banging, like, to do all these different things, I was like, that's cool.
And like 12 hours later, they were like making out. It was just so like,
Barrett, you don't understand what it's like to live in the machine world. You can die at any second. You can die at any second.
It just like, we got knocked out, and then we woke up and Varla had his tongue down some random lady's throat. You know, like it just felt like
he checked in on us first. You know, we had our chance to get with Varl, and we didn't. You know, so what? Supposed to wait around forever?
Yeah, that's fair. Aloy's
I was dead though, watching a fucking Aloy watch her friend Mac on this chick from the shadows. You like see the silhouette and shit. Like, I lived for the drama and like just tasting that salt. And then when she had the third wheel, that cauldron, I was like, girl, this is brutal. You hate to see it.
But even there, right, where it is that idea of like, I think that's fine. Again, they're setting up Aloy to be what they want her to be, but it's like, that feels like there should have been a choice, right? Of like, do we want to romance Varl? Do we want to romance Aaron or something like that? And not that you have to or should, but like, the way they set it up sometimes is weird of like, okay, it feels like there's a choice missing from this. But what I was driving at is I think they do such a great job with this cast of characters, with your supporting cast, with their interplay of all that stuff, that you are like, okay, they're carrying the load here. I do care about them, right? Like, Varl's death, I thought, was powerful. Like, it was the, you know, I think we gave the illusion about it in it, but it was the one where it happened and I immediately slacked blessing. I'm like, oh my God, not Varl. And then when it happened to you, Janet, you immediately texted me. You're like, oh my God, not Varl, right? Like, we like that.
Wait, are we full on Varl's death? Is it Varl's
I mean, we're
death?
everywhere. It's whatever. It's a Spoilercast going on.
Okay, so overall, not like actually him. So you're pro Varl dying.
I was pro the moment, yeah.
You know, I'm not. Like, I did love it emotionally, and I think it was like a powerful moment. And I think the way they built the game, you kind of could only have that with Varl because they made Varl that character. Like, they attributed those kind of they made us love him so that we could watch him get like brutally murdered with like some fucking space harpoon. But I just felt like it was so tacky to kill, like to develop a really strong black character and then kill him off. Like, I felt like that was so tropey and kind of gross.
The only,
because it was powerful, but then also it was like it's kind of like, it's a little tropey though in a way that I don't know if I fuck with it.
Blessing Adeoye Jr. Couldn't be here today, of course, because of the snake bites, but he wrote in with his thoughts on a million different questions and spoilercasty things. On Varl's death, he said this. The one moment in the story that bummed me out big time was Varl's death, partially because he grew to be a favorite of mine, but also because it felt predictable and unearned. I found myself in the moments leading up thinking, quote, oh no, they're about to kill the one black dude, aren't they? Surely they're not going to fall into this trope, end quote. And not only did they fall into it, they did so in a way that made his character feel disposable. Nothing about the death worked for me. Parentheses, lack of buildup of stakes, unlikable Eric being the killer, Beta, who's also kind of unlikable, being who he's saving. This one should have been thought through more. Obviously, I'm not one to speak to race in any stretch of the imagination, but I have a tweet here from the one, the only James Davis, aka at James Davis Makes. Barrett, if you can open up, that went up today, right, where he was quoting a different person who had said, pretty much most other video games, black people don't exist, Horizon, and then it's a bunch of screenshots of different black characters in the game, to which James Davis, and if you're not a video listener here, is a black person, says 100%. The best thing is that these three photos are just a small subset of the black representation in Horizon Forbidden West, and is not just a single black tribe. Every group, every city. Also, further zooming out, the amount of people of color in general blew me away. And to which there's another one in here. Yeah, down the line, there's people responding. I had the same response, but with Asian characters. Representation is awesome. So there's a conversation going on about them applauding it. I get, and again, I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, the arbiter of race relations in video games, but I get Blessing's point that the main black character in the story gets killed here, right? But what I liked about it is the fact that it meant, I understand that it's a trope. It's a main character you've built up, whatever. But it also meant to me as a player, and again, not worrying about at the time of this death or anything like this, representation or, tropes or anything like that. For me, it meant that nobody on the board was safe. That Aaron could be killed, right? That, the one-armed guy whose name I forget right now with the K, he could be killed. That when Silence, who is a black character, but is your antagonist for most of the game, shows up, anything can happen that way. Like, that's what I appreciate about it. I appreciated that they had done a good job, I felt, of making me care about Varl. Showing that again, like I already talked about, Varl falls in love or whatever, at least lust for you, Barrett. He has a romantic connection around this thing. Again, we talk about in the review, and you get so much of the game of coming back to the base and watching them all have just conversations that you're not a part of. Like, I cared about them that way. That's why I wanted those Mass Effect missions. I wanted to do more for them, go out and do more with them.
It's interesting.
I think the fact that...
Sorry, go ahead.
That they also didn't do that with any other character, though. It's like, I think they just had the one death, and it was like so brutal. It was on screen. It's like, you're gonna show me Varl getting harpooned, but you won't show me Ted Farrow's weird monster cave? Nah, fuck that. Like, I was so salty about that.
It's interesting, that you said, like, oh, no one's safe, or it's like, in that moment, it felt and played to me
everybody was safe.
Like, we need to kill one character to emotionally manipulate you in this moment, before we get like into this like very big lore drop in 5 minutes, and it just like, all right, well, roll the dice and see who we randomly pick here. I would agree with Blessing a little bit. Like, I don't feel like it's earned, like, specifically of like why his character was specifically the one to line up to die, and things like that. And if you wanted to like put respect on his character and stuff like that, I feel like, not passing out and then waking up in Carrie Ann Moss's apartment building to get some sci-fi lore drop right after. That whole sequence, I feel like, is one of the weirder moments for me personally.
See, I will say I love that sequence, though. Like, again, I'm sort of narratively and in terms of like impact and what I think it did for the story and what it did for me as a player. Like, I have, again, mixed feelings on Varl's death. Like, I think it got the job done, but it did it like in a janky way. Kind of like when you fix something, but it's still kind of broken. It's like, this works, but like, maybe it could have been done in a better way or a different way. But in general, like, I thought that area was the strongest part of the game because it is like preceded by, God, what's that thing you fight? What, Slaughter Spine, right? Was this the right order?
That sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, like, I fought that thing. I killed it on my first try. Very proud of that. I was fighting for my life. I was 2 levels under. I had my Apple Watch on while I was playing. My heart rate, 100. Like, 100 heart rate. I was, like, in it. And then they had, like, the, Varl's death, and then the beta stuff happened, and then I wake up in Tilda's weird art Airbnb that I really want to go to in real life. And I think... And I get how that can be disorienting. Obviously these things are all open to our interpretations and feelings, but I liked it because it was like, pow, like intense gameplay, boom, crazy story stuff, wait, wild lore shit. And it just kind of really threw everything through a really interesting loop. And I think it helped sort of, shake me out of what I was used to in the game, which was like, all right, we're going to here and we're getting like Poseidon. We're going to here and we're doing this thing, which not that was bad, but I think it really just... To me, that was a strength because I think it had so much strength narratively and gameplay-wise. Again, even with me having some issues with Varl being the one to die. Like, you could have made Aaron like a more important character and then killed Aaron, And I get I am supposed to care, but I feel like if the only way you can get me to care is by using old tropes, I think that's worth examining. It's not that the trope is not effective, like it can be, but you still have to think about that. And I think that was like, it made me think so much about the conversations that were around Last of Us 2 before that came out, of people being like, I hope you don't like fridge Ellie's girlfriend. They're like, don't worry. And obviously they do a bunch of other like crazy shit that may like, that can be disturbing and can like, fall into tropes and things. It's not like tropes don't exist, but I think looking at sociological ones and thinking about the impact that they have, like, is important in terms of designing a narrative. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I understand all that. And so, I mean, that's, obviously where we could talk about coming through this with the lens you bring to a video game. Whereas just like, for me, I never thought about it, right? Like, I think they did such a good job.
The multiplayer?
Huh?
And now we won't get. I'm like, I want Varl multiplayer, and now like it's got to be Varl's Ghost or some shit or some prequel bullshit. But
Man, shit, maybe it'll be a prequel in the multiplayer.
Horizon
We'll see.
Legends with Varl, man.
But like I thought they did such a good job of making Varl a character, and I thought going through different things with him and all these things that personally I felt like I never at any point was watching. Because I'm a big horror movie fan, right? So obviously 80s and 90s horror, the one black guy shows up, I'm like, oh, he's gonna die, right? Like that's always been the running joke in a lot of different horror movies, right? I never had that because I never looked at Varl in this game as, oh, he's the token black guy.
Right.
He's the one black person on Aloy's team, so clearly that's what's going to happen. And so I don't know. Again, I'm just some dumb white guy, so I don't know. Like everything you're saying, of course, of like impact and sociological and what it would look like and all that stuff. For me, I think. At least in my head, and I could totally be off base, it speaks to what they're doing with the character that I never thought of him that way. So I never thought that, oh, clearly he'll be the one to die. Like obviously when the Zeniths show up and started coming, and I'm like, that ain't gonna end well. But I didn't think it wasn't. I was like, it's not gonna end well for you because you're a minority. I was like, it's not gonna end well because these are superhuman, fast guys.
And I did also like and notice the diversity like among the tribes and things like that. I thought that was really cool. How did you feel about? I don't know if we had any questions on this, but how did you feel about the pregnancy reveal?
That felt tropey to me, but then I liked it the same because it was the thing of like I thought her like I'm with child, and I'm like all right, that's. But then it was like this beautiful vista that you could look out over, and like she's talking.
When she started singing, I was like tears. Like I can't. When she hugged Aloy, I thought that was very emotional as well. Like it just I don't even want. I know we're here to talk about it. I don't even want to talk about it because I'm going to tear up again. Like this is where I think there were so many strengths in the construction. If we kind of put the trope stuff to the side a little bit, just like the way they set that up, the way you can sit there, like
and then coming back to visit or something like that, and like it was that thing of like I don't know how many hours later, doubling back for whatever bullshit. I think I was back to the home base to climb up to get a new Stormbird because I knew they were up there and it'd be easy, right? But like running and seeing it, and I stopped and I walked over there and for no reason just hung out for a second. Like I think again that speaks to me how much I liked that character, and like again why it worked for me and why I can totally understand why it wouldn't work for other people and stuff like that.
Yeah, the pregnancy was I think a hair too far for me. I was like, I literally, I had texted Blessing like all throughout my playthrough, like just these big walls of he'd go to sleep and I'm still playing and I'm just like narrating what I'm doing. And I was literally like, get the fuck out. She's pregnant. PlayStation is obsessed with pregnancy. Every PlayStation game is the same. It's just dead dads, surprise pregnancies, and we're getting on boats. Like when Aloy boarded that boat, I was like, God of War, Last of Us, like flashback. And again, I'm saying this kind of hamming it up a bit, but I do think that there are certain patterns that are starting to, and I still enjoy these things. Like these are like PlayStation, like AAA narrative action adventure shit is like some of my favorite stuff. But I'm like, damn, like this is like, it bugged me that it just felt so been there, done that with that kind of reveal. Not that PlayStation games are the only ones to have like, oh, and then someone's pregnant. Like that's been done in a bunch of media. But I do hope that, I don't know, we start to see some of these stories walk away from some of these more visited story beats.
Sure. That's fair. And I think that's, the game is the most successful when it's not doing something like that.
I'm like, it's not enough to have Varl dead. He has to be now his child. Doesn't have a dad. Like, come on. I'm like, anyway.
Agreed. That I agree with 100%. Yeah, the Varl's death I enjoyed, but yeah, the pregnancy I did roll my eyes at first. But then of course I think they kind of pay it off a little bit.
On a lighter note, Zoe as a character. I love her character. I think she's like really awesome, and I love how they really like carry through her expertise really well. I thought where she like knows about like the machines and the land, and she like talks to Gaia and like gets more information. Like I just thought she was really well fleshed out. I will say though, I was sad when I met her for the first time, and we learn about what is it called? God, was it Plain Song?
Plain Song.
Oh, Plain Song.
And they're talking about like the land gods and like, oh yeah, we have the machines tend to crops. And I was like, am I gonna get my machine animal farm? And you don't get the machine animal farm.
That's all you wanted.
The things that I did like was her side quest. It was seeing that through, right? And helping the land gods and like retrieving them. And there were definitely moments throughout that side quest where I was like, oh god, mechanically I can't stand this. There was like one one thing that I had to fight with Zoe, and I had to do that encounter like 3 times, because 3 times I would like kill the final thing that we had to kill and then die at the same time, and it was one of the most infuriating things. But for me, story-wise, it was so worth it, because like the only time I got, I think, not even teared up, like chills, was when you go back to Plainsong after getting all the land gods, and then they start saying, like, the land gods start singing the song, and I was like, God damn, that is such a good like
Payoff.
Such a good payoff of, like, you know, you see the people at Plainsong and how connected they are to the land, and how much that means to them, and how much they respect and you know, love and the land gods, and then kind of seeing that with the land gods themselves was like really, really dope. That was one where, yeah, I was pleasantly surprised of like how much that actually struck me.
And in general, the music in this game, big step up. I was not a big fan of the music in Horizon 1. I
100%.
just found it very forgettable. It really melted into the background, I think, a little too much. But here, I felt like they had their opening theme. They like would bring it up when they needed to. Like, yeah.
So now, since we're here, I want to do this from Spoilercast to Speculation Cast. You have to imagine that. Well, I don't even know. What do you think?
Tilda slept with my clone mom. Yes, I'm glad we're talking.
Oh my god! Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah.
They made that. I thought that was pretty clear.
Weird too, because the first time you talked to her about Sobek, it seems like they were like maybe acquaintances at one point, like kind of friends. And then like the last time she talks about her before you like completely murk her, she's like, you know, I loved her like you could never understand. It's like, where did this come? We did a total 180 of what your relationship with Elizabeth is.
Listen, you have to ease in. You have to ease into that kind of conversation.
Like
right?
that specific little thread, I feel like is a great example of just like so many weird story elements where like, all right, we're gonna like bring it in here and then not develop it whatsoever, then surprise 180 and we're like
it was pretty insane, like out of nowhere. Yeah, because she really just drops that line out of nowhere. You could almost miss it. I mean, I didn't. I wrote it down. Like I wrote it down word for word, and then I was like, okay, so she like definitely fucked my clone mom, right? And everyone's like, oh, 100%, 1000%. But then I like pause in my mind and I think back. I'm like, so that's why she like liked Beta, and then she wants me to like, gross, fucking gross. But
do you think it was that out of blue? Because they were talking, there have been the conversations of like how she saw her, how she Tilda saw her at the conference or whatever, and then had this whole like elaborate way to go talk to her. And I was like, oh, you're clearly infatuated in some regard.
Really? I thought it was just like a fan vibe. You know what I mean? Which sometimes
it read to me like when you're trying to, in college, I'd see a girl or whatever, and I want to strike up a conversation. You go home and you overthink it. You come in tomorrow, the next day with the same cup of coffee or some bullshit like that. That's what it read to me as. I thought that's where we were going early on.
Okay, I did not get. I think I also further didn't get that sense because after having this, conversation takes place on the weird our Airbnb apocalypse terrace, where they're just eating croissants and talking about the end of the world. But she sort of makes it sound like they never really like. Oh yeah, like I talked to her that one time. Like I didn't really get the sense that they had like just a deeper relationship. It kind of sounded like maybe at most that'd be like a crush that never,
sure
became anything. But yeah, I don't know. Like that was a lot to take in. I feel like Aloy is gonna need a lot of therapy after this game. Like,
will she? Because she's a wall, right? That's the other thing we were talking about in the thing beating around.
She opens up a little bit, like
not nearly enough, man. That's my one thing.
Aloy's heart is two sizes too small.
I felt like we were going when we have the conversation with Beta, where she shows, and Beta is like, why are you so different than me? Or why am I so different from you? Why am I not like that? And she's very much like, well, I had I wasn't alone. And she shows the Rust, right? And I was like, here we go. And it says just a hologram of Rust. And it's like, he was cool.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, like I was really hoping to have like for, me and you, Barrett, like Batman talking about how much Alfred means to him kind of shit. You know what I mean? Like, let's have a real moment where she vocalizes everything, because again and this is the weird thing about it, where it's like I don't think it is a failing of the story. I think it's hard to look at something like this and not project what I want. Again, the way Horizon's narrative is structured and the way it is as Aloy, heart, mind, fist, make these choices. We're playing as her. We're internalizing her. Why is she doing these good things? You wrestle with. Obviously, I've known from the very beginning of Horizon Zero Dawn, playing through that, what Ross meant to us and what it was, and like, you know, when he sacrifices himself for it. It's similar. So here we get to that moment, and I want her to break down and open up and say all this different stuff, and she doesn't to Beta, and that leaves me, Greg Miller, you know, sitting there going like, we were so close, and I want that, but I don't know if it necessarily. The character can be that. The character can be a strong silent type that is just like, this is what it was to me. And that can be the choice. And so it's that push and pull of like,
and like
what I want. But again, what I want is something that this Aloy hasn't done in the 68 hours I've been with her, right? Like, it's not like this is out of character.
Because because we've only really known Elizabeth through the eyes of Aloy and all of this stuff, but I do think there is an interesting idea that they had. Again, I think this game had a lot of interesting ideas.
Yeah.
Where it's like, kind of, Aloy and Beta are her two, like, combined together are what made up Elizabeth in a way, right? Where it's like you've got her very type A version of herself, which is Aloy, and then the type B, very emotional, very like left brain, right brain
it's
version.
A and B.
Dude, straight up. And it's like there are interesting ideas here, and I don't think the way that they implemented them were really well done. I feel like if you could have introduced Beta in the first game, I think that would have made a better foundation to building up Aloy's side of like what her character is. It's that moment I was ready for, like, oh, let's finally like learn about Aloy, and then it's like emotionally specifically, and it's like
so,
no,
sorry.
and it's like all
in
right.
this vein, Cameron Kennedy writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, I'm a big fan of the lore and wild, wacky stuff in the Horizon games, but find the writing can struggle a bit when it comes to relationships between characters and jumps in story beats. My biggest gripe is the relationship between Aloy and Beta. We see every moment shared between them, and it was jarring how quickly they became quote-unquote sisters after Beta is shown a hologram of some dude she wouldn't care about.
Yeah.
I feel like I was suddenly told I should care about them. How do you feel about this relationship, and do you feel it was earned? I'm right there with you, Cameron, as we've been going around here, right? And like, even like and correct me if I'm wrong, please. Maybe I missed something. Maybe I looked away. But remember when Aloy leans in and whispers to Beta, and we're back with Tilda. We just see it, and she's like, what was that about? She's like, nothing. It was between me and her, right? And then the next big thing is her calling her sister. Like, I was, again, in the same way. Here's Ross, and he's a man who raised me. I was hoping we'd really go into, and he gave his life for me, and he showed me what a father was, and like that's what Elizabeth's my DNA, but he's me, he's my family. I do this because he showed me what it was to be a good person, right? Like I was hoping it would be that we would get the flashback, like what are you even doing or whatever, and then it's the flashback of like whatever she whispers to her to be like, you know, where you and me are one and the same or whatever. And then she comes like, she's my sister, and we shoot an arrow and like, bam, like there's this moment of like, fuck yeah. Whereas instead it's just like, whatever she said, I'm saving my sister. Like, oh, okay. Like I get.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm mixed on this. I feel like I hear all of your points. There's so many. So to backtrack a little bit, I think Aloy as, you know, Robo Woman. I mean, on one hand, you know, she's a clone. No shade to clones. I mean, we don't have we don't have that at scale at this point.
You talking shit about Dolly the sheep and Superboy?
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't know, but I don't think that's why they make her emotional. I don't think they're trying to make a statement about clones and love and compassion. I think they give her superhero syndrome. I'm Batman, and you know I love Rachel because I told you I did, and I never really, and you know, we get some flashbacks of us as kids, but that's like, I would argue there's actually not a lot of
Arrowhead.
Yeah, like, but I would argue there's not a lot there either. I think the reason that it's, and I know people are gonna come for me, the Batman Begins stands. I'm there with you. I had that shit on UMD. I would hook on my little Logitech speakers because the sound is so quiet on the PSP. But anyway, I love that movie. But the reason I think that they can get away with that in that scenario is that there's not a heavy focus on the relationships. The relationships are just kind of background to the action, and sometimes the action decisions are based on the relationships. I think the reason that sticks out more here in a negative sense is because it's hard to imagine someone being so entrenched in conversation and in emotional things and not feel anything. But then again, you know, I mean, I think I go back and forth on this because on one hand, I do want Aloy to be more emotional, but on the other hand, I think she's just kind of like a cold person. Like I think we see a lot of that, through the, audio holograms and things from Elizabeth, of those moments of her as well, right? Of her thinking that she is Elizabeth. When you hear those old audio logs, like, hey, like, let's hang out, let's get pizza. And she's like, no, I can't. I'm busy saving the world. Like, they both have savior syndrome. And that's why it's like a superhero savior complex thing of like, no, I can't, God forbid I like get a pizza with somebody because, and obviously I'm just using pizza as just a random thing, because I'm busy doing this big thing and I can't feel because I'm too big. Like,
but you can have superhero syndrome and still have emotions that are compelling for a visual medium. Like Spider-Man has superhero syndrome, and that's what makes Spider-Man's
way more emotional than as a character
and it's much more interesting because of that, because of his superhero syndrome and how that ties into his personal life and stuff like that. And I just don't think that there's quite of an interesting crossover into how that affects Aloy emotionally and personally.
100%.
Like, we get a little bit of it, like when she runs away at the beginning and goes on her own, and like I was like, Aloy, you suck, when she like ran away from Varl at the very beginning to go into the Forbidden West and stuff like that. And there is that moment where when he catches up with her, he's like, yo, like, stop being a dipshit. And she's like, okay. And it's like, that's all we really got, though. There was no really like processing through any of that. So like, honestly, like, I wasn't compelled to do a lot of the side stuff with a lot of the main characters, just because, like, in the main story, at least, and what it was presented to me, Aloy was too, like, she just didn't want to be with her friends. She needed to figure this shit out. This is a whole other
I understand that. I think, again, I would love to talk to Gorilla about how they write Aloy and what their intentions are, right? Because I do feel that we're all searching for a conversation from Aloy acknowledging this kind of thing. Because it is that, as we sit here and talk about who this character is and what she's doing in superhero syndrome or whatever, like, I love the idea of the story and the fact that she owns that the fate of the world rests on my shoulders. I am the only person genetically that can do this. I have to do this. And so it is her, I think, you talk about the conversation with Varl of her running away from him. But I mean, like, the game starts with her already running away, right? She did it. Her Zero Dawn happened. We saved the world, and bam, she bounces immediately to go to the next quest. And like, Varl shows up and is very much like, hey, you bounced without even saying goodbye, without taking the victory lap, without having anything. That's kind of fucked up, but we all hear it. And then she does it again. It's like, I would love a end of Act 2 conversation breakdown of what it's like to have. I mean, fuck, like, how stressed out did I get making the Kind of Funny game showcase, right? Talk about, traveling the fucking country, fighting robot machines, trying to do this thing and be the only person who can do it. And you got silence in your ear, you got all the other shit. Like, we know that and we project that. And I think it's a very interesting conversation we're having, because I think we all get Aloy's motivations, we all do. I get Aloy's motivations. I think that they are expressed by the characters that surround her. I just want acknowledgement from her. I want her to feel more believable as a well-rounded 3-dimensional character that is like, yo, this fucking sucks. I do want to hang out. Like, what would she want to do? You know what I mean? She wanted to belong to the tribe back in the beginning, right? She wanted to go to the Proving, earn her place, and be a part of society again. And then clearly that all changed, but like, you want to save the earth, but why? Like, you know what I mean? Like, talk to me about that. And you have a sister and you have this, but like, I get it. And I can make those. And I would imagine that there's just a disconnect where the writers are giving us all these pieces and then wanting us to make our own assumptions about it, but they don't give us enough agency in who Aloy is that I don't feel like I should be told by Aloy what she's doing.
I think, though, too, to the relationship of Aloy and Beta, like, I felt okay with that in the leap to, like, her being a sister, because I think Aloy is someone who is starved for family, even if she isn't willing to admit that she's hungry. She's like, oh, no, it's fine, I ate earlier. It's like, no, you fucking didn't. Like, you have a fuck ton of problems. And that's what I mean by, like, Aloy needs therapy, because it's like, sure. And, and it's funny because there was that, I forgot if it was you or Barrett who said, like, oh, no, she doesn't because she's a wall. Those are the people who need therapy the most. And that's what I feel with Aloy, where it's like, she so desperately wants that, but she doesn't allow herself to want. So you end up getting this kind of like facade. And that, even with that facade, I think it can still be better depicted. I think I would like to see, I don't mind if they make her just like, I'm busy saving the world, so like I'm not gonna really love or whatever. But I think even that can be expressed.
I don't know how to love.
Yeah, I do not. I was just learning to love. I think even that can be expressed in more interesting ways. I think of like just certain shots you could take, ways you could like, in terms of the cinematography, like angle, like even the injury storyline where it's like this idea of her finally having to slow down for a second and not being able to keep going. Like, I didn't have a problem with that scene necessarily, but I think that scene could have been depicted or shot in a way that could put the focus more on Aloy, but it didn't. What were we looking at in that scene? We were looking at Shadow Varl and Zoe macking on each other. That's what we were looking at. And again, I think that speaks to so much of how I feel like Aloy's characterization leaves something to be desired, is that so often we don't really get much of her characterization. We get just seeing the world through Aloy's eyes, and the things around her are interesting. But when we look in the mirror, it's like, it could be anybody, right? Aloy, Beta, whatever. It's just like Elizabeth, like it's all just kind of interchangeable stuff. Generally, I did like the dynamic though with Beta. I liked the, and I liked the idea of her at least owning up to what makes her different and not just being like, well, I'm, not a punk ass bitch the way you are. Like she kind of did have that attitude at first. But then she's like, look, this is my humanity is this person. And I think that like that moment did work for me for that reason. And I think, like familial relationships are so much more than like, they looked so different in so many different ways. Like, I think you totally could just toss that out there as like, maybe she doesn't fully mean it, but it's like a sort of olive branch. Or like, hey, I want you to know that like, maybe I don't really know you that well. Maybe we're really different. Maybe we have like beef, but like we're in, like, you are my DNA. Yeah. And like, that's just fact. And like, how many, anyway, yeah, I could just.
No, I love it. We're having a great conversation. And for the record, no, like, I love that moment. Like we're doing the same thing we did in the review where we're talking about a game that you and I love, Janet. No offense, Barrett. But we're hung up on the things that I wanted more of or less of or whatever. Like when Beta shows up the first time, I was like, oh, fuck, that is awesome. I can't wait to see how they explain it. And then even in the moment, right, where it's like Aloy's hiding and I was like, all right, they're going to leave. And they move the thing and then Aloy and Beta see each other immediately and we're right into it. It's like, oh my fucking God. Like, I loved that idea. To the overall story, like, right, like, I think the overall story is great. Blessing wrote in about that too. He says the story overall was way more enjoyable and engaging this time around. Zero Dawn set the tone with building the pieces of something interesting, and Forbidden West delivered by not only capitalizing off of the setup from Zero Dawn, but by also introducing new story threads that I would have never seen coming. The quest to collect the subordinate functions was such a great move to give each function its own importance and highlight different areas of the map. I would have taken a whole game of just chasing them down in a, quote, collect the functions until you feel comfortable to face Ganon sort of way. Regardless, the Mass Effect-like turn the game takes 10 hours in was so welcome and a game changer for me. And that was my thing I kept talking in the review, I think, about like the first 10 hours for me felt very much like Zero Dawn again. And that was exciting because I loved Zero Dawn, but also like, man, how many hours of this is it going to be? Is it just me roaming it? So when they introduce the Zeniths, right, the far Zenith colonists, right, and they come in and they introduce Beta, and it was what's going on. And again, I think the game does such a great job of, like it did in Zero Dawn, introducing something, you have a question, and not too long after, if you're golden pathing, you get the answer. It's not holding all the way off until the very end of the game to get some information, and then that's the credits, right? It does do that, hold all the way off to tell you what the third game is going to be about, but we'll get there when we get there. This one I thought did a good job of introducing it, and like, when I was listening to, the first time Tilda shows up in an audio log was before you knew about Far Zenith or whatever. And obviously they'd already put out the cast list, so I knew Carrie-Anne Moss is in the game. So when she popped up talking to Elizabeth Sobek, Ashley Birch, I was immediately like, oh, okay, so wait, like, I was like, is that going to be actually is Tilda going to be the same? It obviously shows up. The trailers had shown her in like the crazy outfit or whatever. I was wondering what that was going to be. If that was going to be a hologram, if it's going to be her, it's going to be whatever. And so when they show up and it was like, oh shit, I think these are going to be the same people that they never died or whatever. And that's what it pays off on. Like, I loved that quest. I love that storyline. I loved getting that. I loved, again, is it a weird scene of Varl getting killed and then you wake up and carry whatever? Like, I loved all of that. I loved the delivery of it. I think her turn at the very, very end into a bad guy and a weird machine is okay, whatever. That's video games, but I love that thread, Janet.
I think too, on that note, like I liked one thing that worked for me in this story in terms of the plot is you had like a reveal and then it's like it kind of had one focal reveal, which is like the Far Zeniths. Like that's the core of the game. Like them, Beta by association, like all of that. but you kind of keep turning it around. Like as the game goes, you see more of it. It's like almost like you're zoomed in and then you get more of the picture, like to use like, a different metaphor. And I like that element of it because it's like, okay, so there's like privileged people went to space and now they're trying to kill me. Oh, wait, this is also like they have a clone of another clone. So there's like another me. Oh, she's helping me. Okay, so now this is a little bit different. Oh, wait, Tilda was in on this the whole time. Wait, these are the same people from thousands of years. So it kept like getting bigger and bigger, but it was the same general core piece of information. I think that's what helped make it so intriguing, but also without making it feel like I'm constantly chasing different breadcrumbs, at least from the core plot, versus like a lot of complaints of the, Regala maybe isn't in it as much, or then like it's like Silence is kind of there, but then like you don't see him for like 30 hours and then he's like there and then he's like, I'm gonna dip, just kidding, here forever, what's up guys? Like I get how that doesn't sit great with some people because I can't really pretend like, no, that was super effective. But for me, that didn't bother me as much because it felt like ancillary stuff to the core plot.
I want to talk more about the zines. I want to talk about more about Horizon Forbidden West. But of course, I also want to talk about patreon.com/kindafunnygames, where you can go to write in to be part of the show. Like so many of you have. You could be watching live as we do this, contributing like James Davis is, Cameron Kennedy is, Matt Grover is. However, you can also go to patreon.com/kindafunnygames to get each and every episode of PS I Love You XOXO ad free. But guess what, Jack? You're not on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. So here's a word from our sponsor.
This episode is brought to you by Guild Wars 2 End of Dragon, the third expansion for the award-winning and critically acclaimed MMORPG Guild Wars 2, and the culmination of the Elder Dragon saga. There's no shortage of new shenanigans to get up to explore the beautiful Canthan continent, travel, fish with your friends in your own personal skiff, unlock 9 new elite specializations, pilot the Siege Turtle combat mount, and way more. If you're new to Guild Wars 2, don't worry, their community of over 16 million players are ready to welcome you with open arms. If you're already a Guild Wars 2 commander, it's time to gear up for some new adventures, like that Siege Turtle mount I mentioned earlier. Yeah, it can bear 2 riders, one to handle the turtle, the other to operate the weapon strapped to its shell. That's awesome. What about the personal skiff I mentioned? It's your new home away from home on the waves. Ferry your whole party around to explore, relax, or drop anchor to fish over 200 unique species around Tyria. You can check out the link in the description to get your hands on Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons, available now.
Yeah, so I thought you nailed it, Janet, of this ever-evolving thing. My drawback on it, right, is the fact that Tilda is clearly the star of the Zeniths. She's great. I love her delivery. I love everything else. I have to look over, I have the game open, right, and go through the character bios to say, oh, Gerard and Eric were the other two. They were the other far Zenith dudes. And Eric just being non. The only reason I remember Gerard Superman
is
2.
because it's such like he looks like a fucking Gerard, you know.
He looks like a Gerard,
He goes out like a Gerard as well, where it's like when he goes is thrown into the rune, in the room, and he's like about to be killed by Carrie Ann Moss. I was like, yeah, I saw this one coming. Like that whole turn, like I feel like was way too, like almost too foreshadowed in a way. I wish they had at least built up Gerard, since he was like built up as the leader, a little bit more to make me think like, all right, like the final, like, all right, Eric is a mini boss, even though like I wanted him to be the main boss just because I want the game to be over. But also like like build up Gerard, so I think he's the main guy that I'm gonna go after. Maybe Carrie Ann Moss is gonna be helping me in that boss fight in little ways. And yeah, it didn't happen like that, and it felt very predictable, and very mustache twirling villain where she gets into the the robot.
Yeah, it was
machine.
it was giving like Jack and Daxter a little bit. We'll just get into a big mech thing and fighting. Like that's what it reminds. Yes, it reminds me of like that. I mean, many games do that kind of thing, and I, to its credit though, I think it makes sense ending with a machine. I think this actually felt just a little more personal than like the last game, where it's like you're fighting Hades, but like Hades is an entity. So I'm like, well, what does this mean? And then it's like, oh, Hades just throwing a bunch of machines at me. And I'm like, I mean, it's epic, but I'm not feeling it. I'm just kind of doing it. Like you're just throwing a lot of shit at me. And
we mentioned it earlier, but it is a shout out to go get all the cores and have the cores talk to you and like have to talk to them. Like I dug that a lot. I dug that they had personalities. I forget which one is the one of like, wait, you'd silence the voices or whatever. Like, I'd finally be able to rest or whatever.
I wish they would give the subroutines, subtitles. I had subtitles on,
Oh,
and I can't
there are
understand.
subtitles.
Oh, they weren't for me. Anytime that I
Yeah, it might have been a
bug. Ran into the sub functions,
Yeah, they talk
were
funny sometimes.
It was only like those, and when Aloy tried to talk to herself underwater, where it's like, I can't understand you, and then I put on subtitles, and it's like when you're in like random environmental stuff and Aloy's just talking, I don't think that's subtitled for me either. And these sub functions, so I was like, what? All right, I feel like I'm missing a lot of whatever's going on here and whatever.
Let me bring in a Blessing Adeoye Jr., Forbes 30 under 30, talking about the Zeniths and the Odyssey and all that stuff. I have a love-hate relationship with the Zeniths. Their initial reveal, along with the reveal of Beta, was cool as hell, yet they seem so out of place. It's obviously intended as they're from the old world, yet our time with them is so brief that they didn't have time to grow on me and gel with the current world. I hated Eric's character. He seemed cartoonishly evil in a Simon Krieger sort of way. Where's Simon Krieger from, Barrett? Spider-Man Miles Morales. He put it in parentheses. I would not have known. Yeah, I would not have known.
I was going to be like,
the Troy Baker,
like a Silence of the Lambs guy?
This bad guy, right? Yeah. Blessing continues. I love Tilda. I loved Tilda, and I felt like her and Silence were underutilized. I would have loved to see more of their interactions. I put Angela Bassett's Regalia in there too, right? Where I feel like they wanted multiple strong characters, both helpers and herders, good guys and bad guys, teammates and enemies. And I think they might have gone a bit too far with it, where it is like, I don't feel like I got enough Silence. And granted, he was in the first game a lot. So like, if there would have been too much, I would have been here bitching that it was too much like Zero Dawn. But I guess it's also a good thing that I wanted more Tilda. I wanted more Silence. I wanted more Regalia. And if you add them all up, I got a lot. Not to mention all the amazing side characters you run into, all the amazing side missions, all the amazing chieftains and things you go through and work with that I think have really awesome communities built around them that again, to Paris's credit, when he was talking about all this in the review, right, make the open world the star of the show. Where I think, the story I think is great and I had a great time with, but I had a great time with it in the way I have a great time with a big popcorn movie where it's like, yeah, there's all these things and plot holes and why didn't they do it this way? But overall, I had a great time and I loved it. But it could have been better. Whereas the actual going through and having these moment-to-moment interactions and, you're talking to somebody who's just a blacksmith, but they're going to give you a cool weapon. And for some reason, they're excellently well acted and they have a cool storyline for what you're doing.
Yeah, I feel similarly as far as like the open world stuff. I talked about this a little bit on the review, but like I had talked to, it was fairly early in the game, so probably still around the Oseram kind of areas, like two sisters, like one that was obsessed with like explosives, and I got that like spear, which you can get other versions of that spear that does heavy damage that like carried me through like the last like two human boss battles, which I kind of want. There's so many things to talk about. So like before I move on, who's here in this game. I love her. If you don't know who I'm talking about, she was like the woman who became like the head of the hunting lodge in the first game. She has like really badass armor.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Like
what was her name? Sorry, I talked over you at that point.
Alana, I think I'm saying that right.
Yeah.
I think that's her name. I was sad because I actually didn't finish her questline before the review came out, but I went back and I've put in like quite a few hours since we did the review of still like playing it, still enjoying it, still being like, yep, this is more awesome stuff. And like one thing I really like too about this is having done like the campaign, which took me like, I forgot how many hours, like 37 or 8 or something, and then putting in another like 4 to like 12 hours. And I'm still finding like new machines that I hadn't seen before. Like I think they add in fun stuff on those side quests. And like getting to hang out with Talana and have her like be like, okay, meet me like 80 miles this way. And then you kind of like can follow her and see what's going on with like another relationship she's forming. And that dynamic plays out and it culminates to like a really good battle. And then you have like this end story bit. Like I really like stuff like that. But I want to ask, for the end of the game, the final boss is essentially like a 3-part final boss. Because you have Regala, you could argue that you have like the machine stuff, but I think that's just more like stuff to get you to like the cool
filler
battle. Yeah, it's like just you're doing it there, and then it's just like, okay, now we're gonna like soup up the machines, and like this is Aloy's secret trick that she had in her back pocket. And also, I wish I could just watch those machines kill each other for like the whole time. Like I was sitting there like, we got to get moving. I'm like, do we? This is awesome.
Yeah, that was cool to like see it like play out kind of in real time in engine like that. That was dope.
Yeah, I thought that was really fun. But the Regala and the Eric stuff specifically, like, how did that sit with y'all? Because for me, my gut reaction, like when I had to face Regala, I was like, oh no, melee combat? I did not play this game this way. Slash, I did not. You don't fight a lot of you don't do a lot of like intense one-on-one human-to-human combat in the main campaign necessarily. Like, obviously, there's side stuff that could do it, or if you want to pull up on a bandit camp and just like square up on people one by one, you can kind of get that practice in. But I felt kind of like sidelined by it, and then like it was interesting, but I just felt like, oh, we have never done this, and like, why is this on the exam? Like, this wasn't in the study guide. I just felt like it felt a little bit random mechanically, but I thought the fights themselves were, challenging and had some decent checkpointing. But like, how did that sit for you?
For me, it reminded me of a funnel of a not old school video game, but a older video game where it's like, which I'm not always the biggest fan of, where it is, hey, you've played the game this entire one way the entire way, and now we're giving you a boss fight that's going to be completely different in a weird way. So I was the same way with Regalia when it started, of like, oh man, melee or whatever, but I enjoyed that fight. Once I got going, it didn't turn my head around about what melee was. It's not something I used, and it's not something I then turned it around.
Her mechanically isn't super different. Like if you mess up an encampment, right, and there's like a tough person you got to fight, like her mechanically isn't super different from that. So there's at least things that have been learned throughout the game to kind of mentally prepare you, even if you're not doing it super often, where you're like, okay, I've seen this before. It's going to take a little longer than some other normal enemies, but you get a good handle of it.
And then for me, it was that, the fight is multi-stage, so it eventually gets to that arrow section where it is, get behind cover, shoot at her, roll out of the next thing. And I felt at home there. So I enjoyed that fight. The Eric fight is a fight that I would need to go back and rewatch because I got through it and I didn't hate it, but I also don't remember it being that interesting. And that was
pretty quick.
That was my thing. They were talking about the final fight with him, but then also I was not happy with the first fight with him, which wasn't even a fight, right? Where it was, when we meet Beta, they get her out, and then it's I got to bring the giant thing down in the center of the room or whatever. That was another one where I was like, we're doing this really? Like this is like I think why I think this game is amazing is the combat, is the fighting the machines, is the stealthing coming out of it, and blah blah. So to suddenly have all that stripped away, and it's like, all right, now this thing that should in the context of the game, squash you like a bug. We've already, he's using some kind of advanced futuristic tech that I'm not at all capable of stopping yet. It was weird to be like, all right, cool, I'm going to slowly shoot this thing down and around. And then it's like, we go from the awesome moment of the reveal of the Zeniths coming in, this weird fight, and then an awesome moment of losing. Aloy had to basically sacrifice all this stuff to get washed out, to do this thing. You almost drowned. Like, there's all these great moments there that I thought, in the cutscenes and even a little bit of gameplay at the end of like swimming out works, but the fight, I was like, this now feels stilted and slow. I'd rather this have played out as a cutscene.
I feel like a lot of, and this is like the core of like why I bang my head against the wall with a lot of the combat, is it doesn't feel like the combat mixes well with a lot of the designs of areas that you're fighting in. That first Eric encounter, I think, is a perfect example of like, all right, you're telling me I got to focus on this thing I got to shoot specific arms of, and I got to do that while also not being able to see the dude that's attacking me to be able to focus on these arms that I'm shooting. And a lot of it just seems to like clash against each other, which I didn't love. The area that you fight Eric the second time at the end of the game, I thought was like just visually like kind of just like, why like you have this beautiful like futuristic sci-fi like this beautiful thing that we rarely see in this universe, and you're like, let's go to something that we've seen for the last 40 hours. Like, why was that the choice? Maybe to make it feel different from the Carrie-Anne Moss fight, but still give me, I don't know, that was like such a weird choice for me.
No, I think that's probably pretty spot on. I mean, I think Eric, the final battle with Eric, that second part of like that 3-part act, it was pretty like, I don't know, just kind of generic. Like he was just sort of a little bit spongier than other people. Like he didn't really, I mean, he had some like, I guess some more interesting moves because he does have all that futuristic gear, but there wasn't much going on. And I think about like boss battles that I have enjoyed that I thought served well, because I often too, for me, my problem with a lot of boss battles is it feels like this is here because you needed to have a boss battle here. And what I like about Horizon, like when, again, I also love the combat. Like I think that's the number one strength. Like it's why I adore this franchise. And what I love about it is when they have bosses, they rarely feel like bosses. It's like they're kind of just more epic battles or a more intensive machine. So I think with Eric, it stood out kind of awkwardly because it's like, okay, here's someone who's like a person, but he's not as like interesting or on the ground as like the last battle was. But he's just kind of there, and there's not like a lot going on here. Just kind of run around in circles, just like spamming like an attack just to try to get his health down. So yeah, I think that's when it's like at its weaker points. But like for me, I actually do like the flow of combat generally, regardless of the arena for the most part, because while it can be frustrating to have to like loop around, you have something shooting at you and you're trying to just to shoot like these like pieces from a machine. I felt like that was pretty akin to like what I do when I'm fighting a machine. Like I'm looking and I'm slowing down time and I'm like getting those hits in. And like, to me, a lot of the cadence of Horizon's combat, obviously everyone plays a little differently, but for me, it's cheesing that weapon wheel and that slowdown and being strategic about, you know, holding it just until the last minute, then you do the dodge and kind of, and using it in ways beyond just getting a bunch of arrows like shot off at that time. So I thought that flow generally worked really well. Also, I did for a second think Rost was alive. I don't know if anyone else was fooled by that, but I was like, "You're telling me he's fucking alive?" I saw him explode, and then when he like faded away, I was like, "Okay, good," because like I'm putting up with a lot of weird shit here, and I'm not going to deal with like Rost is back from the dead to help me on my journey. But yeah,
Rost clone.
They had his DNA all along.
Yeah, man. Like, oh my god, please.
So I mean,
we're my dad now.
We're moving to the end of the game here and stuff. So what was the Nemesis take?
Here's something we're going to introduce at the very end to make it a trilogy, because everything's got to be a fucking trilogy. And you want to talk about, you know, like a weird, just like orb that you're fighting, like Hades at the end of Horizon for Zero Dawn. You're going to make your like big ultimate threat in the end of this trilogy just another big fucking orb that like knows the like has the memories of the human race. Like, what? Fuck you so much.
it's I'm right there. I'm not as aggressive with the fuck you so much, but it was such a head scratcher for me of like, this has been a great, entertaining, fun story. Obviously, you know, I have, you know, I wish Beta would have had a conversation or whatever the fuck we're talking about. But like, I've enjoyed this whole thing. I think the Zeniths are awesome. I love the payoff of like, you know, replaying or a little bit of Horizon and watching all the caps and like hearing about the Odyssey and that it blew up and that was the end of it. And then getting here and it didn't blow up and they went over there and they figured it out and now they're coming back and like, oh my God, why are they coming back? Blah, blah, blah. All of that was awesome. And then to have it so tacked on here at the end that we're actually running from Nemesis and it's all of our AI consciousnesses and it's mad and it's coming after us piece by, and it was just like, okay, like you've given me something that is such a nebulous idea that I get it because that gives you 5 years or whatever to figure it out for the next game and make it entertaining for when we attack it and fight it. But like right now, I didn't need that. Like I would have much rather it have been like, this, you know, we beat Tilda, Carrie Ann Moss, you know, and on her deathbed, she's like, yeah, we were coming here for, you know, whatever, to escape the real threat. And she dies. And then like we, you know, celebrate and then we get the credits. And then when you get similar to the end of Zero Dawn, right, where Silence shows up and captures it, hello, old friend, like something like that, that is like some alarm going off that, you know, Nemesis detected or some shit like that, where you're like, what the fuck is that going to be? Because the explanation of it is such a weird, like, oh, so it's a cloud of memories of, you know, it's another mad AI. It's
also, I have a question about that. Did they, because they made this thing, you know, the Zeniths made Nemesis. Right. Did they name it Nemesis when they were making it? Or do they call it that now?
No, yeah.
So let me find out you made something called Nemesis, and then you're like, I can't believe that it turned against.
It was originally like Nigel Emesis, and then they put N.Emesis on there, and like Nemesis.
Oh my God, it's Nemesis, and each thing stands for some shit or something. Yeah. I think my beef with this ending, and again, I love the story overall, I love this game overall. However, I think it does feel like a little bit too, I don't know, I'm conflicted. It feels a little too samey for me, I think, for it being like, it's saved. Not exactly. Like, and I feel like it's more clearly not saved than it was in the first game. While the first game was like, well, I wonder what Silence is doing with Hades. It wasn't really clear, like, what would be the next conflict, and then obviously like we learn about like the blight and like why the world's still messed up, and that makes sense based on what we knew about Horizon without taking away from our victory from Horizon 1. This one feels like, just kidding, you solved nothing, you're fucked. Also, like, I guess again we're running it back with like weird ambiguous machine ether orb, but then also it feels weird in the sense that so much of the conflict of the game is trying to save Earth through Gaia and the, oh my God, what are they called? Subordinate functions. Like that's the whole thing. It's always been about that. Horizon 1 was about that. Horizon 2 was about that. But now it feels like actually none of that even matters, because also you didn't finish doing that. But none of it matters because there's this thing coming that's going to destroy Earth. Even though the Zeniths already left Earth, it's just going to destroy Earth anyway, because I guess it just destroys everything that the Zeniths touch. Like it just felt like a little... my beef with this is I feel like it is a lot easier for us to guess what Horizon 3 will be about. While what was nice about Horizon 2 is I wasn't really sure what they'd do with it. Like I knew it'd be, same general mechanics. I knew it'd be machines. I knew it'd be like tribes and stuff, but I'm like, well, what's going to be the big conflict? And even though I wouldn't say like the core of like we're working on fixing Gaia is shocking, the stuff that went along the way was surprising and interesting. I do have faith that they will find ways to make it interesting and surprise me, but I just feel like being able to now more clearly see what that third game is a little less exciting for me, because I liked not really knowing and feeling like it didn't need to be there, but you kind of just wanted, you had more. I don't know. It just it landed weird. I wasn't a fan.
No, I hear you and I agree with you. Of like, they said too much when they should have said much fewer stuff, right? Real quick, I'll toss out Blessing's thoughts on it, right? Regardless of that hiccup where he's talking about how he didn't love actually I cut it out of order. What I guess Varl maybe is what we're leading off of. It didn't ruin what was a really enjoyable follow-up to Zero Dawn. I can't wait for the third game. And even though the introduction of Nemesis felt rushed, parentheses, they should have used Silence and the Zeniths to give hints about Nemesis throughout the game. I can't wait to see how Aloy and her army battle it. That's, again, where I think he nails it, of like, if we could have had more time with the Zeniths, I don't understand why, again, for Gareth, what's the fucking dork bald guy's name?
Gerard.
Gerard. Why we never cut back to Gerard in Zenith crew talking shit, planning stuff and even a mention of it, or some fucking digital thing.
They never really do that though. Narratively, like they never have a cut like that. Like,
I know.
The closest they have
really would have been helpful though.
Yeah, you have the technology to be able to like in engine on the PS5 cut from one point of the map to the other like almost seamlessly. Like do that with the villains. Make me like build up these villains in a way that like that's really interesting and give us hints about the next villain. The way it left off, it made me in a very different structural way. I wish that more of the game was about Pharaoh's tomb and those weird, crazy zealots, and like that be most of this game. And then the Zeniths come in near like the last third, building them up to be like kind of the main villains for the end of the trilogy or whatever. Just because I think they're a much more interesting concept, and I feel like the fact that we barely saw them in this game, they came and went, and they're all dead by the end of this. I was like, man, you guys like had some really cool sci-fi, Planet of the Apes inspired kind of like lore stuff here that was super dope, and you just kind of like went nowhere with it eventually, just to be
they burn it too fast.
Yeah, they burn it too fast just to be the messenger of like Thanos is coming kind of shit, And it's just like, all right.
Now, we nailed that. This is where I started to go earlier, but we got off of it and had a great conversation about something else. But to come back to it now is like, Blessing, I can't wait for the third game. I'm interested in what the third game is going to be. Nemesis we're fighting, sure. What does that look like? Who fucking knows? Where we're going with it, whatever. But the whole, we had so many conversations about Horizon multiplayer and what that would look like and would they do that and yada yada. And as soon as Aloy started reaching out and trick-or-treating all these focuses to people, I was like, here we fucking go. And so my question for you, Janet, is speculation cast now. Do you think we get a Ghost of Tsushima Legends type thing, or is Horizon 3 multiplayer and it is, all right, cool, it's similar, like I would guess Peace Walker, right? Where on your game, you're playing as Aloy, but when you want to join somebody else's game, you're whatever soldier and you're off doing your thing and you're all out there as Aloy's army.
Ooh, I'd like the latter, because I think it's just more intriguing and riskier, but I'm guessing they're going to go with the former because it's, I think, easier to package and like I think it just fits in better with like how the gameplay is like designed structurally, especially when you think of like, yeah, this was Aloy's army, the game, but at the same time, like it's not like every second you were with people. And even if you were, it never really felt like I never personally felt the way, this is like such a weird comparison, but like with Elden Ring and the summons, like I feel like that thing I summon is really helping. Like I didn't really feel like I literally couldn't do this without this NPC character. It's more like,
sure.
oh, they're doing so. They took out like one of the robots. Well, I killed like 4 of them, but yeah, hey, one is better than the none that we used to get back when AI was like less advanced from a design standpoint. So yeah, like, but I would love if they're giving any multiplayer away, I want it a lot. This is like, there's not a lot of. I'm not a multiplayer person at all because there's not a lot of multiplayer games that have gameplay that I'm interested in doing because like a lot of popular multiplayer is like shooter stuff, battle royale stuff, like racing stuff, fighting stuff. I'm like, I don't want to do any of those things. Also, we need to talk about the racing in this game because I have some thoughts. But yeah, I'd love to do like we're just out there and we're hunting. I think that's when the game's at its best, however they want to do it. If they want to make it like what we speculated before, where everyone has a different specialty or a type of like, ammo, weapon or ammo or whatever, you build it up slowly, you build your own base or whatever, anything they're willing to do with it. I want it. I think like the gameplay is so strong and I would love to like team up with people and go through it together because I think it'd be super fun.
Barrett, do you think multiplayer would be a standalone thing or do you think it'll be the full-blown sequel?
I think it'll be a standalone thing. I think you could do some interesting things to allude to like what the next big sequel is about.
For sure.
But I could see it. I see them probably playing that safe and having, it be more of Ghost of Tsushima Legends type of thing, where it's some story stuff here. It's more of just like a fun excuse to play with your friends and hunt some dinos and stuff like that. Very like Monster Hunter-esque, right? And then
maybe finally get my farm.
Yeah, maybe you get your farm, maybe. But again, PlayStation's going to play it safe, so probably not.
Yeah.
I think it'd be weird if the third one was you're not Aloy. And I think the whole Metal Gear, like, you're playing a Snake and then on your game, but on somebody else's game, you're not. I think that gets weird too. So I think you'd have to do a multiplayer standalone thing. And I think it would be a really great one of talking more about what Nemesis is. Because back to what you're talking about, Janet, when the reveal of Nemesis, then you're kind of like, oh, well, then like you beat the game, you did the thing, but actually you didn't. And that's like, okay, cool. Like, that's not a great feeling. It also wasn't a great feeling when like Aaron shows up and is like, glad that's over with. Hope we never have to do it again. And Aloy just like gives him a look. I was like, I don't know. Like, well, tell him. Like, let's, you know what I mean? Like, let's push that part of it forward too.
I feel like Aloy needs to let Aaron know the truth. This man clearly doesn't get the hint. He likes her a lot more than she likes him. Like, just let him off this hook. She's like, I think he's figuring it out. I think I've been pretty clear. No, you haven't. You haven't. This poor.
And he keeps like being a jerk about it occasionally, saying weird things. Like, all right, calm down.
Yeah,
man.
well, it's like it's that awkward energy. It's just the energy, the romantic energy in this game is so toxic, and I love it because I am dramatic. So I'm like, it's fine. They're not real.
You love the drama.
Yeah, I'm like, this is safe drama. Like, no one's getting these people aren't real. They were just
Kabobs writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames and says, so everybody's flirting with Aloy. This is known, but who should Aloy hook up with? Barring the possibility that Aloy is asexual/aromantic, which would be cool to see, who would work best? Petra? Alva? So many good options to choose from. I'll tell you, as soon as I ran into this man, I texted Blessing. I'm like, this is the nerd she needs to be with. Moreland in Vegas. Yep. Are you kidding me?
Yes.
I had to look up who he was. Like when I saw the note in the run of show, I was like, Moreland. And then when I saw him, I'm like, oh yeah, yes.
Did you do his side, like come back and do like the hot air balloon side quest?
No, I haven't.
Dude, it's like so cute, and just the way he talks.
The main stuff. How they're like, talking about like making it's like, oh, and then we could do this.
Yeah, the way they add on each other is fucking full blown dorks. I was like, yeah, you dorks, you should be together. Like that seems like that'd be a great one to settle down with and have your little desert life. And then the hot air balloon stuff, and she ends up protecting him. And of course,
he has a place in New Vegas. I mean, that place was beautiful. Like, not a bad,
shout out to
not a bad one.
Story moments that I actually liked. The Vegas.
Dude,
stuff.
Vegas is awesome.
I don't love the underwater stuff.
Really?
Slowly going through. Well, I just any game that's going to be made from here on out. Are you thinking about putting water gameplay into your game? Don't stop it. It's never good. Stop it.
Also NFTs.
Also NFTs. Like you're like what to not put in your game. Number 1, NFTs. Very close second, water levels. Like
What's your water game?
I don't mind once we finally like get the water level down and I can start fighting, like actually fighting.
Sure,
the
when you
monsters.
drained the swamp.
Yeah, exactly. Like that stuff was cool. And then like the reveal though of like going up and like the power's back on. You see all the hologram stuff. It was like just such like
that's awesome.
A cool,
real quick,
fucking moment.
While we're here too, I want to jump in. Blessing jumped in. Vegas was easily the coolest reveal, and I love the quest into the underground.
Yep.
That'll definitely be up there as moment of the year for me. And Vegas is for me like, well, there's a couple. I mean, spoiler. There's a million things we can talk about that I think are super impressive. Vegas in line was one of the jaw-dropping experiences, and coming back and having like, especially when he's describing all these orbs of light and this, that, and the other, and it's like to have them turned on and come back to it. The way they lean into it too, of being like, all right, cool. Like, this is great. At the end of it, like they start talking about making Vegas again, right? And bringing people there. And then when I came back for the side quest later on, even how that's evolved, I think that is just such a stunning set piece moment. I loved investigating it. Again, what we're talking about from, Zero Dawn to Forbidden West, knowing where we are and being able to reference it. And like the fact that Aloy knew what Vegas was and she knew what San Francisco was. I was like, oh, that's really cool. And I appreciate that. And I liked exploring those. And I loved exploring San Francisco. It's funny. I think the game, especially if you're Golden Path it, you get there, you do the thing, you bounce the fuck out, and you never worry about it again. And when we streamed on launch day, I was just dicking around, running around. Mike wanted to see SF, and I went there, and I think it was Blessing who popped in. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even look around here. I didn't even see the Golden Gate Bridge, and we're going around, and the Palace of Fine Arts is there. That was the one where I was able to line up the thing. And then even where they're like, is Alcatraz there? And I'm like, no, but it should be around here. And I swam out there, and sure enough, there was an Easter egg there for Alcatraz. I was like, yes, fuck yes. This is what I want out of a game like this.
I was surprised how little we were, at least if you were just like Golden Pathing it in San Francisco. Also for the romantic thing too, I want to shout out Petra, because I feel like their relationship is probably the other most like romantically developed, in the sense that, I mean, she's just a side character for like side quests. Like you can easily kind of avoid seeing Petra in both the first and second game. But I think she's one of the few characters that Aloy actively flirts back with. So that's why I picked Petra. Also, I think it would work. She can forge the weapons and shit,
And again, I agree with you. She'd be a great partner for Aloy. And again, they hint around a little bit of it, but I like that Petra's like, hey, come have a beer with me in this game, right? And Aloy is very much like, well, I'm trying to save the earth.
I absolutely did. I was like, I went back. I was like, let's like, I was like, Petra, good, beer, good, let's go. Like, versus like Talana, as gets shot out a lot as a romantic prospect. I think they very much do have a friendship relationship, and without spoiling that side quest, I think that is further. Like she feels like a friend. Like they're just good friends. And
she was a homie that I was just glad. Like I'm helping you out on some shit.
Exactly. But yeah, I do love though the energy of everyone wanting Aloy all the time, and the Sun King being like, sorry, I made it weird, and I'm like, yeah, you keep making it weird. Like, anyway, but it's fun.
One other thing, and this is I had like a revelatory moment. Cameron Kennedy in the chat was asking about why didn't we see Monster Pharaoh, and that made me think, because the Pharaoh's tomb, I think, is my favorite sequence in the entire game. And throughout that entire sequence, I was like, this should have been the entire game for me, personally, of just like this really tense buildup, these weird religious zealots, the dude calling himself the CEO, which is a funny thing off of like CEO and stuff like that. Like I really loved all of that stuff. And
wait, double back to that one and explain it, because I think with captions on, it makes so much more sense.
So the guy who wants to go into Pharaoh's tomb, I forget his actual name, or if you even.
But he's like cosplaying as Pharaoh.
Yeah, he's cosplaying as Pharaoh. He sees himself as like the second coming of Pharaoh, essentially, and he makes you cosplay also as Elizabeth, and because he knows that you're the clone of Elizabeth, and like forces you to go in there, and is like wants to essentially like almost like role play, and it's like really fucking weird. And again, the entire time I was like, God, I wanted more of this, because this is just like really dark, weird stuff, which I know maybe isn't fully what Horizon is trying to be all of the time, which I get. But yeah, I just loved that. And, Cameron Kennedy, like, they build up this whole idea of, like, Pharaoh has been searching for the idea of immortality while down here with, his all of his lady friends and the scientist that he kidnapped and his guru or whatever whoever the fuck he hired to just whisper kind nothings into his ears and boost up his ego. I loved all of the kind of like politics that you learn of like what the hell happened down there while the end of the earth was essentially the end of modern society was happening on the surface, right? And they get the slow buildup of like he did find it, but mutations and things were going on, and then you get the kind of reveal of like that dude is still alive down there, but that man is like a gross monster right now, and I wanted to fight it. So if there was, I didn't want to fight anything really in this game, but I wanted to see that dude and like fight him because I think that would have been really cool.
They did such a great job of building it up, like you're saying. They ratchet up the tension. Yep. You realize something's going on. You realize it's going wrong in general for Ted Faro in his past timeline. You see the horror from the people surrounding him, and then it's this. Oh, hold on, he actually did it, and so what's going to be on the other side of that door?
And then, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I was bummed that you didn't see him or fight him. I just felt like, and again, I know I'm drawing like a lot of parallels to other like PlayStation first party stuff, but it feels like it'd be like not seeing the Rat King or not fighting the Rat King. I feel like,
and that's my answer when Cameron asked it in the chat of like, why didn't we see Monster Pharaoh so they could keep it T for teens? And not bump it up to the M kind of stuff because of like the way that they built it up. That he looks as gross and fucked up as the Rat King, but just bigger for whatever reason. And I do wonder if there's a version of this game or that was the final kind of
M-rated cut, and where like Aloy's banging everybody and you're fighting Ghost Pharaoh.
Yeah, exactly. And the Zenith are more built up to be in the next game and be the main antagonist in the next game. And I wonder if there's a version of this game where all of the Pharaoh stuff was much more in the last act of the story rather than in the final part of the second act.
Yeah, I think, it's funny we talk about that and how we've talked about the Zeniths and everybody else. It feels like there's just a lot of stuff like put in this game, which is great and gives us all a lot of stuff to love, but then also criticize. But it's also like, man, I would have loved to see some of these ideas breathe a bit more. Like, I think that's the thing. And like Pharaoh's Tomb is such a cool thing. Blessing called that out in terms of what he loved about it. Not to mention Pharaoh's Tomb, even though I wish we could have gotten to see more for the payoff. I'm right there with you. Of course, the whole thing of like the play on, what I was driving at with the CEO thing, right, is that they call him CEO. Because they don't know it's the chief executive officer. They think it's just one word. So they're just saying it over and over again like that. Of course, Ted Faro, pyramids, tomb, like they do a bunch of cool stuff there, obviously. Like there's a bunch of stuff that I wish could have breathed more, but then I wonder at what point do you worry about it being too much and taking away from it? Because I do have these moments. The game is pockmarked with these awesome things that I really connect with and really love, whether it is a side mission like the hot air balloon, whether it is a main thing like Pharaoh's Tomb, whether it is just, roaming the countryside and fighting things. Like they do such interesting. This is an interesting one. I thought this is back to I'm Just a Billy. He wanted this still in the rant voice, but I broke it up, so I'm not going to rant for you right now. But also, I can't believe Aloy just blew up the village wall like that. What about the innocent people in there that have to suffer from machine attacks against their weakened defenses? She makes some truly odd choices in the game. I did think that was a bit like of a jump of like these guys won't work with us because of the wall. Bing, fuck the wall. I'll blow up the wall. Like whoa.
I mean, well, again, it's like she doesn't have. To me, I don't know, like her morality is very basic, it's like filtered through. It's like, well, I need to save the world. Yeah. So like, I am just going to work backwards from saving the world and whatever happens. So, I mean, it is weird if you think about it, but Aloy doesn't because she just has her goals. So she's like, look, in order to like, and I guess you could argue, why doesn't she just like the guy who's like, oh, I won't let you into the underground unless you do all this stuff for me. Like you could just kill him. But I guess she doesn't want to. I don't know. It's like what does the least amount of guaranteed damage? And I guess lowering defenses isn't as bad as like straight up killing whoever's in your way. But the fight before that though, to actually get the stuff to blow up the wall was really good. I struggled with that one for a while. It was like whatever the elephant machine is called, and like just having to hide and figure out how to like set up everything. You had a couple human enemies. Like I think they did a really good job with some of the bigger set piece battles with the machines, like making them really challenging. Yeah, the Tremor Tusk. Yeah, that thing sucked. I was like struggling so hard.
Let me see. I had a couple other ones here from the old Patreon I want to toss out there. Trying to think of stuff we haven't gone through, whatever. Yeah, let's go to Mark Parks Sharks wrote into patreon.com/kindafunny
Nice.
games. It says, "Hey, Janet, Greg, there's so much I want to say about Horizon. Like, I think the game overloads you with information, but I'd like to take a second to point out some of the small cool stuff they added. The stash system. You can pick up everything with reckless abandon and refill your raw materials quickly. Weapon skills. Each weapon type has 3 skills to pick from and assign to a weapon. It's a badass way to make weapons feel different and unique. Dyes and face paint. Very dope. Machine subroutines. You can set machines to offensive or defensive. Potion overheal. Now you can freely drink potions without worrying that you wasted it, because if it heals you more than you are damaged, you get a second tier health bar. It's not a perfect game, but it's an improvement. If Guerrilla keeps applying these lessons they learn, then there's a good chance that the next Horizon will own the limelight instead of immediately losing it to a once-in-a-generation masterpiece that releases the week after. Also, a little tip, turn off machine sights on your map. Trust me when I say you don't need it, and clear some clutter. I think a couple of those things we missed in the review, obviously, going through. The potion overheal is a nice addition. I do like the dyes. I wish it was a bit more like do whatever the hell you want with them, but I understand that this is a AAA game that they want everything to look amazing in, so they give you sets.
Yeah, I also, I wish there was maybe like a little bit more, an easier way to inventory what is at each settlement. Like there isn't really, like, to my knowledge, a way to easily kind of look at that information without just going there and kind of remembering. And obviously, logic tells you that the stuff that's like toward the end of the game is like the better stuff, but I wish it was divvied up a little bit differently. But overall, I liked a lot of the quality of life stuff. Again, I think I have almost no complaints about the quality of life stuff. I think they also added a lot of fun additions that I wasn't expecting. Like there's a chest in your base that just always has dope stuff. Because people were just out there getting stuff. And I'm like, great, free stuff. And I loved having stuff like that. I think that was really cool. And yeah, overall, I think, so one thing I want to shout out too, as far as like the ways they've changed up things, is the tall necks, like how each of the tall neck overrides is like a little bit different and a little puzzly. And my favorite one, I mean, there's only like a handful of them in the game, but like the one that's in San Francisco when you go underwater and then it emerges out of the water, it's so good looking. Like they have so many good moments like that of just being wowed by, I think, the beauty of the game from a fidelity standpoint, but also just the grandiosity of what you're doing. Like I think the tall necks are such an effective machine in making you feel small in a way that feels awe-inspiring. And I think that was just one of my favorite, for me, that's going to be one of my favorite moments of the year. Like that act of not just getting the stuff to make it work, but how it emerged from the water, I thought was really, really cool.
Yeah, that was cool.
Final one I want to bring in is from Dane Hansen, who writes into patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Says, I did it, guys. 48 hours in and I've popped the platinum. This game really took a turn for me once I finally got all my story upgrades and the world was truly mine to explore. What really holds this game back for me is those story upgrades. I would have really loved to have just been able to do everything starting at going after the 3 sub functions. But even having platinum of the game, there is still so much to do. I could easily see myself putting another 50 plus hours into the game if I wanted to clear the map. I was so stoked at the start of this game, bringing back so many characters from Zero Dawn. I felt the completionist run of Zero Dawn was the canonical ending. But now, with so much to do, with all the rewards just seeming to be better gear, I feel a little disappointed that I don't feel incentivized to clear the map. What if I missed something from dropping the game too early? I had to go back to Zero Dawn to refresh myself on Petra from the last game. I know with your jobs, you occasionally just need to drop a game and not look back. But in these larger games, do you ever feel a sense of FOMO for not completing it? And how do you deal with that? So a whole bunch in there, obviously, about how much is in there, Janet. But then where are you at with completionist in this game and platinum and all that jazz?
I'd like to platinum it. I'd also like to complete it. Right now, I'm just working on it as a completionist run with the platinum kind of running in the background of my mind. So usually how I'm doing this one at least is I pull up the trophy list. I pull in a couple ones that I can easily work towards on my trophy tracker. Stuff like, the next level. Stuff like maybe if I want to do one of the last tall neck or something, I might pull that one in. One thing, though, I'm worried about is one of the trophies is to scan all the machines, counting the final boss, which I did scan, but the scan only counts if you scan it and then not die. Like if you die after you scan it, the scan doesn't count.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, if I'm wrong, I hope I'm wrong because I'm scared that I didn't scan the final boss. I haven't checked my info yet. I also don't want that to keep me from like playing the game more because I enjoy the game, but I also don't want to have to replay the game just to do that one thing because I don't think I have a file before that final boss. So
I'm looking at mine, and you're right. It would be under machines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
I don't,
The last one here is hidden, but yeah.
I don't know that I scanned that one. So that's my only beef with it as far as a platinum run. But as far as the other things, like I love the game and I enjoy, again, the combat and getting the cool weapons and stuff. So I feel incentivized enough in that sense. I don't necessarily need a narrative reason to do more. I just like, you know, getting more backstory, getting more lore. As far as is there FOMO, I think it depends on the kind of player that you are. I mean, some people, and you know, we see in the comments all the time, they're like, the true way like that I do open world is, you know, I live in it and I don't buy any, you know, that's it. And I'm there the whole time and I'm reading all this stuff. Like, if that's how you want to enjoy it, sure, go for it. And that'll be fun for you. I think the general though player experience is always a more mainline thing. I mean, statistically, most players don't even finish the games that they start. So I don't necessarily feel like I'm missing out on anything because I feel like if I needed to know it, it would be in the main campaign. If it's not, it's because I don't really need to know it. And if it's, you know, it can be nice to get some of the extra like information. Like I know having Platinum Horizon 1 and then playing this game, it was really cool to be like, oh, if you get all the power cells and get that ancient armor is actually like an earlier, like less powerful version of the armor that the Zeniths are wearing. But you don't need to know that. It's just a fun nerd moment. And I enjoy having that moment. So I'll probably, you know, go through this game the same way. Hopefully I retain all that information the way I did with the first one. Obviously I played those much closer. But yeah, I mean, I think it just totally depends on what do you want out of it? You know, if you're someone who wants to be fresh for 3, maybe you should beat it and then platinum it, you know, closer to 3. Like, there's lots of ways to go about it. It just depends on what do you want to get out of your gaming experience. And then I would just act in service of that and not in service of some imagined lore that you feel like you need to have to you know, follow along.
Yeah, I think the story is going to give you the setup you need for Horizon 3. I don't think you need to worry about it. Is there some reference in a cutscene or a piece of tech or whatever you could have had? That, I mean, of course, there's stuff like that. But I find it fascinating that for me, I'm going to platinum it. I'm excited to platinum it. But I also see that once I platinum it, I don't see me deleting it from my hard drive based on space if I have to re-download it. But like the idea for me is that I find the game such a joy to play and such a fun game to play that even now, like, you know, you talk, Dane, about like you're not incentivized what is going to be more loot. For me, it is about the next side quest and seeing what that character needs or what they want or, you know, what that would do for whoever I'm helping. And like, I see very much as I'm excited to play more Horizon, not because I'm excited for the platinum, even though I am, and there's something to grind for and go for. I'm excited just to play. And I like the idea that even though it can totally seem overwhelming, and it is probably to some extent how much there is to do in there, that there's always forever. I'm never going to do everything in the game, right? There'll always be something to turn on and do in there. And I do see Guerrilla adding more to it. I don't think they've said anything about DLC or anything, but I do see updates coming. And obviously something like Frozen Wilds is probably from them as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's Horizon. Forbidden
I'll see you on the
West.
end of the. I'll be interested to see what our journey looks like as the rest of the year and the years come, because one thing that's unique about this platinum compared to the last one, like for Horizon 1, is to platinum Horizon 1, you did need to do everything and then some to a degree. Like I feel like there's a couple things, you know, in terms of leveling or whatever, that's kind of natural when you do all the side stuff. This one, I don't think you actually need to, you know, complete it to platinum it, which is fair. I think that's the right call because the game is massive, but I do want to complete everything. So I'm kind of just debating on like, what's my cadence of, am I going for the full 100% completionist run of it? Am I going to do the platinum and then maybe never complete? So I'm kind of playing with those things. But yeah, I mean, I love the combat here. The incentive to me is getting to experience more of the game. So yeah, we'll see.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's your Horizon Forbidden West Spoilercast. We wrote down the rest of the show, like, you know, the normal stuff of like PlayStation updates and what are we playing. But like, this is a time capsule episode where it's going to grow over time. Do you really need me to tell you, everybody, right now that we have rumors about PlayStation's Project Spartacus? Some motherfuckers going to be listening to this in June and be like, nah, I know what this is. I know all this stuff. What do they care?
Also, though, wait, hold on. I know we're moving on, but we have a couple, like, there's like quick hit stuff I want from you right now.
Then hold on, let me just do this then. We
Okay.
would have told you about PlayStation Spartacus. You probably saw it on Kind of Funny Games Daily. Jeff Grubb has the leaks and what he thinks. The subscription for these programs monthly starts at $10 and goes up to $16. This is far from unconfirmed, confirmed. Sorry, but it's got monthly games, back catalog, streaming, classic games, game trials, and the different price points on that. The PlayStation 5 to PlayStation app is for game captures is now live, so you can get your PlayStation 5 captures onto your app seamlessly. And then your PlayStation Plus games for March 2022 are Ark Survival Evolved, Team Sonic Racing, Ghost Runner, and then Ghost of Tsushima Legends is going to be a bonus title for PlayStation Plus members this month. Janet, give me your quick hits for Horizon Spoilercast.
I want to know what you think of the racing in this game.
I don't think I've done it. I don't think I've done it once.
Oh my god!
This is where I'm riding
I
my horse,
did 2
my
races.
mechanical horse.
I did 2 races, Janet. What you got?
Well, now I asked y'all first. What do you think of it?
Again,
Damn,
like much of this
Did
game.
she love it or hate it? I can't tell.
Again, like much of this game, a cool idea, implementation, a little weird and clunky.
Right? It's okay. It's like it's kind of bad, right? Like, and
Yeah.
I didn't bring it up to just dog on it necessarily. I thought it was an interesting idea, but yeah, you have to do it, Craig, because it's like.
Is it a gauntlet run? Is that what I'm looking
Yeah,
for?
gauntlet runs.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm tracking. I'm going.
Yeah. You're on it now. Oh my god. So
I mean, I have I keep my PlayStation.
to set it up for like those that are listening, or if you maybe also miss this because I think it is like optional or whatever. You get on your mount and it's like you race on the mounts, and it's literally Mario Kart, but with there's a lot of kart racers, but same formula, but with like the Horizon trappings. So it's like, oh, you have like this, you have a boost, and then you can like you can turn around and shoot the arrow, but the mount's still going forward.
Like at other people.
And you can
hit.
melee people.
Yeah.
It's like Jack X Combat Racing meets Mount, but like the Mount was never like, it works as a vehicle because I'm just in like a forest or I'm on the desert. So it's just weird. Like it's a weird. I'm like, what? I did it. And I'm like, what do I feel like here?
Point A to point B in an open world game, it doesn't control well enough for me to want to have it be a kart racer kind of structure.
I thought it was cute that they had it in there though.
Yeah,
like it was like
they
it
tried
was
something.
unexpected and weird. I was like, this is an interesting. That's in there. Other quick hits. This is something I just want to shout out. The Aloy beta thing is TI versus TIP the game. If you know TI and his back catalog, you'll know what I'm talking about. I was like, this is TI versus TIP, and this is hilarious to me.
Okay.
That was your thing.
Yeah, that was basically it. Oh, also, I think my very last thing is at one point talking to Tilda, you say you didn't know the Zeniths were monsters, and she says I knew some of them were, but, and I just think that's hilarious. Like very clearly, it's some layer of evil here, which I just thought was funny. But yeah, those are my my takes. The fan fiction for this game is going to be insane, and I don't want to see it.
Hold on, I'm bad at doing the things Kevin.
Are you bad at it, or is it also?
No. Yeah, you're missing my point. I'm bad at things Kevin would normally do. So you're gonna get just my OBS. You have to look through OBS. So, oh no, it went full screen, didn't it? Okay, cool. Okay. So
Barrett, I don't know live. Okay, hold on. So I'm gonna disable your video.
Sure.
And then I'm gonna watch your stream, and then there we go. So now we have it.
I'm not even testing the track. I'm just going, ladies and gentlemen, this of course has been PS I Love You XOXO, your Horizon Forbidden West spoiler. Okay, hold on, speed up, slow down, race to avoid damage, hit the other racers, use item, aim back. Oh Jesus, okay.
Oh, you're live here? Like this is your gameplay?
This is me right now. Playing around like a shoulder.
Interesting. Okay, now I'm excited. Now it's a party.
Jesus. Okay. What do I?
Oh my
God.
God.
I shoot that or grab it?
You can hit people with a melee attack, and then you have.
I thought the thing was on like the overhang deal.
The bags hanging you can pick up. They're like kind of like items.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
like
so they give you like electric
about,
arrows and like things like that to specifically use.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man,
this is great.
So many things are happening.
Sorry, audio listeners, it was bad.
Okay, I'll just do, esports side. Greg's on the mount. Oh, off to the side, off to the left, getting bumped off there, pulling ahead a little bit. Does have an enemy directly behind him. Did get shot. He is fallen. You can hit R2 to recover. He's fallen back behind 2 racers. Shot one of them down. He just killed somebody, but they'll probably come back because it is a racing game.
I see,
Okay, doing
I
some
see,
long
I see,
distance shots, catching up, closing that gap. This is Greg Miller's first race.
Still
Someone's
in 5th
down.
place, in 4th place. A very good example of, Greg Miller's middling gameplay in all
Oh,
games.
Barrett, we're friends.
Exactly. And Barrett, you've done a couple of these races. What tips do you have for Greg here as he's pulling ahead here?
I don't know. Just keep
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on going fast, And
Gotta
then-
go fast.
Yeah,
Try to
gotta
keep
go
up.
fast.
Yeah.
Some would say you got to go fast. We
Come
see
on,
a
now.
Sunwing
I've
shadow
stormed
there
ahead
a
to 2.
little
Give me
bit.
some credit there, guys.
Okay, 2 out of 7. 2 out of 7. The little bit of that video game magic. Will it rubber band in his favor? I don't know. Only did like 2 of these races
you
myself.
bastards.
They're not very good. I'm not gonna lie. They're a little bit awkward. I am interested to do more purely for the trophies. Honestly, it's this and Strike. Not interested in doing it. Frankly, I don't. I'm glad you did it. I don't want to do it, but I'm glad you did. Running through
First
some
position.
barricades. You could go around, but he's like, why go around when I can go straight through?
Yeah.
Okay,
I was
back
I
on the
I was
line.
after shooting number 1 in the head. How long are these? Fuck.
Oh, this is
That's
the
a great
long
question,
run.
Greg.
This is the long
You're
run.
in there for the long haul here, and
Yeah.
a couple people are shooting at him now. If Greg he could turn around and do a shot, but that is a pretty complex move that
How do I do it?
I've never
Yeah.
done. It's, you know what? I wish I could tell you, but I am but a lowly sportscaster here. I can't really interfere with it. It would be unfair for the other players.
I appreciate
Now
that. I
at
appreciate
3
that.
of 7. Moving about as it's a race, but we're moving about
It's
as
like
slow as you
road rash
possibly
now.
can.
Now it's like road rash.
It's a little what's the name of that movie? The one with the
Fury
it's
Road.
like, oh yes. Why did you get that from that? What's
Yeah,
the name
we're
of
the
that
same
movie?
person.
Yes.
It's fine. I understood what you were going for before you understood what you were going
It's
for.
a little Fury Road, but he's out here whacking people with what seems to be a stick. I don't know, part of an arrow,
My
a
spear?
spear. It could be many things. All right,
End
1
it.
of
God
7.
damn it. Where's
Pulling
the
ahead.
ending?
The markers here.
That's
the end
fun
is
thing,
any
Greg,
minute
is,
or not at all.
It never ends.
Got shot again, but he's doing fine. Looking alive,
Just
running into
barreling
some
through,
obstacles.
yeah,
Don't worry.
yeah.
I would say it's not a race, but it is. Oh, now 2 of 7. It's
Oh, that's the end. That's the end. That's the end. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on,
There
come
we
on, come
go.
on.
Use the boost.
Am I not? I'm tapping X. I
don't
thought
know.
that was it.
There
there's
is a
another
boost
boost.
ability, but
Yeah, that wasn't terrible, but that's not something I'm like, I want to do a lot
Right?
more of those, you know?
it was weird. Like, I feel like we had to at least talk about it for a second. 'Cause
No, I'm glad you
it was an
did. No,
interesting
100%.
moment. I'm curious to see if there's more weird stuff like that I just maybe haven't seen, but
I'll
I'm
stop
guessing
streaming.
not. But
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been PS I Love You XOXO, your Horizon Forbidden West spoiler cast. Did we cover everything? Of course not. We just talked about the things we wanted to and the things you wanted to. Of course, we can talk about more of it because I think we're going to be talking about Forbidden West for the rest of our lives. You can write in on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Over on patreon.com/kindafunnygames. Of course, you can watch the show live as we record it, like Alexander is, James Davis is, like Cameron Kennedy is. Of course, you could also get the show ad free, as I already said. You get to watch it live. You get it with the post show we're about to do, and you could just have a great old time. You could be a Patreon producer, so much more. And you can watch the Gamescast live and all that jazz, blah, blah, Xcast. You know how it is. However, if you have no bucks tossed our way, no big deal. YouTube.com/kindafunnygames, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every Tuesday morning. Of course, you get ads. Of course, you don't get the post show, but you still have a good time. Janet, where can people keep up with you?
you can follow me on Twitter, Twitch, and across social media platforms at GameOnysus. That's GameOnysus.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been PS I Love You XOXO. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.